Chapter 1717. It wasn't that Han Fei hadn't participated in auctions before. When he was on the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei had also participated. At that time, he spent so much money that he almost had a nosebleed. However, the specifications of the Scattered Stars Island were very different from those of the Heavenly South 10,000 Treasure Pavilion in the Thunder City. The auction here was held underground. Whether from the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion or the 10,000 Treasure Tower, there was a direct passage to the auction house. Han Fei and the others went down directly from the 10,000 Treasure Tower through the elevator. Tian'er said, "Sir, because you made a big deal in the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion, the manager specially arranged a separate auction room for you, Heavenly Thunder number 9. The compartment has an independent shielding array, which even a venerable can't detect. Of course, if you don't mind, you can also remove the array." Han Fei smiled. "That's perfect." Han Fei thought to himself, no wonder it's a big city. The specifications are really different. When Han Fei arrived at the so-called private room, he found that although the room was not big, it was extremely elegant. On the table, there was tea that had already been brewed. Tian'er said, "Sir, this is the Heavenly Treasure Dew and Pulse Expanding Tea specially purchased from the Medicine King Heaven. Please enjoy. If you have any instructions, please call Tian'er." However, Han Fei frowned slightly and said lightly, "Give me a new tea set, and this pot of tea is yours." Tian'er was stunned. This pot of tea is worth 100 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Why did he throw it away so casually? However, Tian'er was overjoyed. These days, Han Fei and the others didn't need her at all. Therefore, they didn't give her any tips, and she didn't have any luck. Unexpectedly, when the auction began, the other party said that the tea of the Medicine King Heaven was not good enough, so she took advantage of it. At this moment, Tian'er knew why the manager asked her to serve Han Fei and the others. She had just come to the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion and her strength was still too low. If she served such a customer, this pot of tea would be enough for her to enter the law enforcer realm. Maybe she could even quickly stabilize her cultivation. After a while, when a brand new tea set was served, Han Fei waved his hand, and the earth vein spring appeared in the pot. As for Nianer's cup, Han Fei specially ordered a few drops of demonic chi essence for her. As for the remaining pot of demonic energy essence, Han Fei began to drink it by himself. Perhaps it was because of the upgrade of his bloodline, which led to the upgrade of his life level and life potential. Some of the power that the old Grand Elder had given him before was slowly being absorbed. At this rate, it would only take about a month for old Yuan to release a little more. Tian'er was also shocked. "Is it earth vein spring water?" She felt like she was going crazy. She had been in the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion for about 5 months, and she had only seen a small bottle of the earth vein spring water. However, Han Fei drank it as tea. Was this the world of the strong? The Tian'er auction house was divided into 3 levels. There were countless private rooms. Those with status were basically all on the top floor. There were a total of 36 rooms. There were 72 rooms on the middle floor. The lowest level was the main hall. In fact, there was no lack of rich people who could enter the hall. These people were here purely for the money and were here to search for treasures. A skinny elder presided over the auction, and his strength had actually reached the peak of the venerable realm. Obviously, this displayed the might of the Thunder City's myriad treasure pavilion. To be able to control such a big scene like the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion, there was naturally a half-monarch overseeing it. He might even be able to form a connection with the Lord of Lightning and Fire. The old man introduced, "Everyone, I'm Thunder City's myriad treasure pavilions Zhou Qinglei. Today, I will be the host of this Southern Sky auction. There's no harm in letting everyone know that a few amazing treasures are about to appear today. Perhaps everyone will be able to feast their eyes on them." This old man was so mysterious. Immediately, someone said, "Lord Qin, can you tell us more?" The old auctioneer smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. Even if I gave it to you, you wouldn't recognize it." Ha! Many people in the hall laughed. Someone said, "You're only a half-venerable. Can you afford a sea-quelling bizarre treasure?" Someone sneered. "Forget about sea-quelling bizarre treasures. You may not be able to buy an ultra-quality divine weapon even with all your wealth. Han Fei could not see the other private rooms. He glanced at Tiana and said, "Wait for me outside. I'll call you if I need anything." Tiana, "Yes. My guest." Han Fei sat at the table, drinking and waiting. The auction began a little earlier than usual. The old man, Zhou Qinglei, said, "Everyone, we can't be slow in our actions today. The Southern Sky auction always has treasures. Attention, everyone." Next, the first item of this auction, a high platform covered with red silk appeared in front of the old man Zhou Qinglei. Someone immediately said, "It's really the usual auction style. The first item is an ultra-quality divine weapon." The corners of Zhou Qinglei's mouth curled up, and he raised his hand. In an instant, blue light shone and lightning arcs flashed. Zhou Qinglei shouted, "The first item of this auction is an ultra-quality divine weapon, the purple thunder blue fire hook. It's an offensive weapon that can break through defense and evil. It has a strong suppression effect on undead creatures and evil chi. The starting price is 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones." Someone laughed and said, "It's like this every time. An ultra-quality divine weapon that should be priced at least 20,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones has to be priced at 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Isn't this place hot enough? Let me warm it up. I'll pay 20,000. Someone sneered. "What's wrong with warming it up? 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones at once? Are you a rich man?" 21,000. Someone shouted, 22,000, 23,000, 30,000. Seeing this scene, Han Fei felt that he was too stingy before. Are the people in the outside world so rich? Ultra-quality spiritual stones. 20 or 30,000 at once. How much spiritual energy would that be? Clang! In the end, Zhou Qinglei knocked the hammer and shouted, "Purple thunder blue fire hook, 38,000 going once, 38,000 going twice. Sold." As soon as the deal was made, the atmosphere in the hall was heated. Zhou Qinglei raised his head and glanced up. None of the people up there bid, especially the people at the top level. So far, no one had bid. It seemed that the treasure was not good enough. Zhou Qinglei waved his hand, and a purple fishing rod appeared. The second item of this auction, the purple dragon void-breaking rod. This rod is made of blood-colored purple dragon bones, with the heavenly thunder divine iron as the hook and the long whiskers of the heavenly carp as the silk. It was forged by a 6-star refiner from Thunder City for 49 days. The starting price is 20,000. Wow! The heavenly thunder divine iron as the hook? Isn't it said that the heavenly thunder divine iron is an iron forged by the master of thunder and fire? Damn, I must get this rod. I bid 25,000. The blood-colored purple dragon is not common. This rod is good at hooking. I want it. 30,000. And this time, someone from the upper level took action. Anyway, Han Fei didn't know who it was. As soon as that person opened his mouth, he bid 50,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, which shocked the audience and easily won. It was reasonable to say that although the fishing rod was good, as one's strength became stronger and stronger, ordinary people wouldn't use such a powerful fishing rod unless they encountered extremely powerful fishing techniques and hooking techniques. However, Han Fei had to sigh. Refiners really make money. This ability to make money seems to be faster than robbing people. Han Fei couldn't help but marvel. In the end, he was too narrow-minded. Fortunately, it had been a while since he came to the outer domain. If it were in the past, he would have been shocked by this huge amount of resources. It seemed that in order to attract the guests from the upper level, this auction started with 5 ultra-quality divine weapons. In order to take care of the people in the hall, more than 20 high-quality divine weapons, heaven-level ultra-quality cultivation techniques, venerable-level cultivation techniques, top-level spiritual fruits, and so on were thrown out. Han Fei, however, felt a little impatient. And Zhou Qinglei also saw that someone on the upper level opened the array. He frowned slightly and immediately knew that the atmosphere was about to be heated. However, the old man shouted, "Everyone, the next thing is really rare to see." A small bottle appeared on the high platform. Zhou Qinglei spread his hands and looked around. There are 3 great pills in this bottle. These are the heavenly power pills refined by a half-king realm grand pharmacist of the medicine King Heaven. After taking it, within 3 months, one's perception of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and affinity to the power of Tao will be doubled. Whether it is practicing cultivation techniques, great techniques, body refining, or absorbing the power of chaos, the effect will be doubled. To prevent the efficacy of the pills from being lost, they will be displayed for 10 seconds. The heavenly power pill? That's a venerable level divine medicine. Someone said, "What do you know?" That's a divine medicine below the venerable level. It's said that anyone who takes one of them to reach the venerable level will definitely make a breakthrough. Someone said, but it's also very effective for venerable level cultivators. It's said that one pill can save 10 years of hard cultivation. As Zhou Qinglei opened the bottle, a golden pill floated in the air, and information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Names: Heavenly Power Pill. Introduction: This is a cultivation supplementary pill refined by an alchemist with a wisp of chaotic energy and 300 kinds of precious materials. After taking it, your potential will be stimulated, and you can cultivate quickly in a short period of time. Level: Venerable Level Quality Ultra Quality contains chaotic energy. A wisp remarks, it's not very effective for advanced venerable level cultivators and above. When Han Fei saw the last line of description, he immediately smiled and felt bored. It was useless for advanced venerable level cultivators, let alone for him. Besides, this thing seemed to be very valuable, at least 50,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. He couldn't buy it and give it to Xiao Sei, could he? After all, Old Yuan didn't need it. Old Yuan was an Emperor Realm expert. Han Fei was not interested, and the audience was shouting crazily. Even on the top floor, most of the private rooms had already started bidding. Someone shouted, 60,000, 70,000, 75,000, 80,000, 100,000. Suddenly, someone in the private room next to Han Fei shouted in a low voice. 3 pills were directly quoted as sky-high price of 100,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, which directly shocked the audience. A young man walked out of the private room, with a line of fire between his eyebrows and a 5-color wheel behind him. Wow! He's a 5-element disciple. What? This kind of heavenly talent also came to the Tianen auction? He has shown up. It seems that we can't compete for this heavenly power pill. Chapter 17-18. The auction of the Heavenly Ascension Pill pushed the auction to its climax. In the end, it was obvious that the 5-element sect obtained the 3 heaven-reaching pills. Tianer immediately walked in and said respectfully, "Sir, what can I do for you?" Han Fei said lightly, "Tell me about the 5 elements disciples." Tiana was slightly stunned. She thought to herself, since the guest is so rich and strong, how could he not know about the 5 elements disciples? However, she was just a small waiter. Since the guest had asked, all he had to do was answer. He heard Tianer say, "The 5 elements disciples are disciples of the 5 elements heavenly palace. In the 36 Xian heavens, some of the kings of the immortal palaces personally taught their disciples. The 5 elements disciple was called General Yi, and he was at the peak of the intermediate venerable one. It was said that it could surpass realms in battle and control the 5 elements at the same time. He excelled in both close combat and long-range combat, and was publicly acknowledged as a proud son of heaven in the 13 outer realms. Even in the 13 heavens of the inner realms, there are people who say that among those in the same realm, they can enter the top 10. How many of them are there in the Avalon of 5 elements? Tianer said, Tianer doesn't know about this. However, there are already 3 5-element disciples that have appeared. Alright, you can go. Yes, sir. After Tianer left, Nier said, Big brother, it sounds very powerful. You can actually control 5 elements. Nyin? Can only control time. Han Fei was amused. He said, you can control time as well as he can control 100 elements. Nyen? You must remember that the Time Great Tao is one of the most powerful Great Taos in the world. You must not belittle yourself. Really? Uh. While Han Fei was listening to Tianer's explanation, Zhou Qinglei took out another bottle of pills. Amidst the cries of surprise, someone exclaimed, "What? A three-stage Dao pattern pill?" While Han Fei was wondering about the pill, Zhou Qinglei said with a smile, "It seems that you've all heard about it." As the name suggested, the triple Dao pattern pill was a supreme pill that had experienced the pill tribulation. Furthermore, 3 Dao patterns meant that he had experienced 3 pill tribulations. It's only one step away from the 4th layer. You can evaluate it for yourselves. This pill has a spirit and will not be displayed. Its main effect was to improve one's physique and strengthen one's blood, qi, and physique. It was a great help in breaking through. Everyone, please believe in the credibility of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. The starting price of this pill is 100,000 supreme-grade spirit stones. Hiss, Han Fei gasped. Damn it, is alchemy so profitable? The starting price is 100,000. At the end of the auction, wouldn't it be worth 200,000 yuan? Spending hundreds of thousands of top-grade spirit stones for an elixir, is there a hole in my brain? However, the old turtle suddenly said, "Buy it." Han Fei immediately said, "Wait, isn't it a bit expensive?" He didn't even let me see it. The old turtle said, "This pill with 3 Dao patterns should be a 3rd-grade tribulation pill from the era of gods. It contained the laws of the heavenly Dao. The richness of the great Dao was not something that ordinary pills could compare to. Although I don't know which aspect this pill focuses on, no matter what aspect it focuses on, there's nothing wrong with buying it." "What is pill tribulation?" The old turtle said, "If you are that pill, then the pill tribulation represents the heavenly tribulation." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "So, it's really a pill that has survived the heavenly tribulation?" The old turtle sneered. "That's nothing. Once the pill tribulation passes the 6th level, the precious pill can transform into a creature. At that time, the pill can even become a living creature. Therefore, in the era of gods, alchemists made far more money than refiners." Han Fei was speechless. Old Jiang seems to know alchemy too. But at that time, I didn't know alchemy could make so much money. If I had known that alchemy could make so much money, maybe I would have changed to alchemy. However, this time, many people in the hall turned to look at the private room upstairs. Except for these people upstairs, ordinary people couldn't afford this kind of divine pill at all. Next to Han Fei, Bo Yi, the 5 Elements disciple, directly took action and shouted, "Such a precious treasure only needs a small increase in the price. I bid 150,000. The audience was in an uproar. However, most people had already expected this result. Without money, they couldn't participate in the bidding of such high-end goods. As soon as Bo Yi finished shouting, someone said, 160,000. A woman followed. "It's boring to raise the price like this. 200,000, don't bid below this price." Immediately afterward, Bo Yi shouted again, 210,000. And at this time, in the upper private room, a restriction was directly lifted, and a familiar voice came out. 250,000, I want this 3 Dao pattern pill. It was none other than Jin Quan, the heavenly talent of the Golden Crow Heaven who followed Bing Shui Chuling. The pupils of the 5 Elements disciple shrank slightly, and he cupped his hands. I didn't expect that the Holy Maiden of the Snow God's Temple would come in person. The other one must be fellow cultivator Jin Quan of the Golden Crow Heaven, right? Jin Quan smiled faintly. "Thank you. But the strong masters of the Golden Crow Heaven are here. Is that the Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Snow Sect? Gosh, it's said that she has an engagement with the Golden Crow Heaven. With this person's status, I'm afraid he can't bid this price." However, someone also sighed. "It's already 250,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. If he wants to continue bidding, he must have the capital to bid." At this moment, Zhou Qinglei looked around and obviously sighed in his heart, but he also shouted, 250,000 once, anyone else? 250,000 twice. Just when Zhou Qinglei was about to bid again, Han Fei said lightly, 260,000. All of a sudden, everyone's eyes turned to Heavenly Thunder Room number 9. The smile on Jean Quan's face suddenly disappeared, and he said in a cold voice, "Don't you know that the Golden Crow Heaven has bid?" Han Fei said leisurely, "I know. You bid your price, and I bid mine. Why am I bothering you?" There was silence. The 5-element disciples looked at the private room next to theirs and thought to themselves, "Who is this big shot? How dare he openly challenge the strong masters of the Golden Crow Heaven?" Others didn't know the identity of Jean Quan, but he knew a little. He was one of the candidates for the palace master of the Golden Crow Heaven. How dare ordinary people provoke such a character? Jean Quan said, 270,000. Han Fei said leisurely, 280,000. Jean Quan said, 300,000. But Han Fei was still calm. 310,000. Jean Quan suddenly stood up and looked straight at Heavenly Thunder Room number 9. "Why don't we meet? Even if you want to continue bidding, you have to prove that you have the money, right? 320,000. Try adding more." Han Fei laughed. "Then let's try 330,000. When he said 320,000, Jean Quan's eyes were almost spewing fire. Bing Xue Chiliang frowned. "Forget it, this pill is already too expensive." However, would Jean Quan listen to her? He said, "Do you have money? 330,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones are enough to buy 10 ultra-quality divine weapons." Swish. Suddenly, a 3-meter-wide broken carapace, like a door plank, shot through the auction platform from Heavenly Thunder Room number 9. Han Fei said leisurely, "Is this enough?" Jean Quan sneered. "Do you think a carapace fragment can be worth 330,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones?" It had become a contest between Jean Quan and Han Fei. Even the 5 Elements sect was willing to wait and watch all this with interest. Han Fei said leisurely, "Why, such a large piece of King's shell armor can't even be worth hundreds of thousands of ultra-quality spiritual stones?" When Han Fei said King's shell armor, the entire auction house was in an uproar. Zhou Qinglei squatted directly in front of the carapace. This King's shell armor? Everyone, please wait a moment. I have never seen a king's precious material. Let me call someone. No need to call, I'm here. A figure suddenly appeared in the auction house. This person was 5 meters tall, carrying a golden sledgehammer. After landing, the person flashed to the side of the shell armor. Someone was surprised. "Is this Master Yu Qianxue, a 7-star refiner of Thunder City?" Yes, in the entire Thunder City, there are only a few 7-star refiners, and Master Yu Qianxue is one of them. It's undoubtedly Master Yu, one of the 3 refiners of the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion. The Heavenly South 10,000 Treasure Pavilion is under Master Yu's management. Clang Yu Qianxue flicked his fingers, and the air waves rolled. Even the explorers couldn't stand still. Yu Qianxue's eyes lit up. He narrowed his eyes and his hands were shining. King's shell armor was a peerless precious material for refining a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. If it could be refined into a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, its value would never be measured by ultra-quality spiritual stones. After a while, under Jean Quan's ugly gaze, Yu Qianxue nodded. "Yes, this is the shell armor of a king's shell. If I'm not mistaken, the shell is at least an ancient exotic species, which is extremely rare. Such a large piece, if converted only according to the market price, is worth at least 250,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. After all, this was just a piece of the shell armor. And it was impossible to refine a sea-quelling bizarre treasure with only exotic materials. Therefore, to be able to offer a price of 250,000 yuan was already extremely high. Swish. Han Fei casually threw out another shell armor of the same size. As soon as these 2 pieces of shell armor were thrown away, Han Fei said leisurely, "Golden Crow, do you want to continue to raise the price?" "It doesn't matter, you can continue." Jean Quan was dumbfounded. "How can I raise the price? These 2 pieces of shell armor are worth nearly 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. What if Han Fei has more? If I raise the price and Han Fei takes back the shell armor, won't I lose a lot?" Immediately, Jean Quan snorted coldly. "Hiding your head but showing your tail. I don't know where you found this secret realm. Let's wait and see. Facing Jin Quan's threat, Han Fei didn't care at all, nor did Yu Qianshui. He said, "Fellow Taoist in room 9, are you selling this king's shell armor?" Han Fei nodded. Yu Qianshui was immediately overjoyed. In that case, the Heavenly South 10,000 Treasure Pavilion can accept 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. It is absolutely worth this market price. What do you think, fellow Taoist? Han Fei smiled lightly. Han Fei was happy to make more money. Once he found a body refining technique, the consumption of resources would definitely not be small. Besides, he still had a pile of such shell fragments. However, the moment Han Fei took out the king's shell armor, Jin Quan, the 5 Elements disciples, and even some others had already begun to stare at room 9. The 3rd chapter? Please vote for me. 3 chapters a day is already very fast. After all, there are 10,000 chapters a day. This book has been published for a year and a half, and it already has 2 million words. Please support me. End of this chapter. Chapter 1719. In fact, Han Fei didn't care about what these people thought. Would these people target him? If he wanted to be targeted, then so be it. The people present today were all rich men. Hundreds of thousands of ultra-quality spiritual stones were like a drizzle to them. If they didn't target him, how could he make money? In the next auction, 7 or 8 ultra-quality divine weapons were taken out. After that, there was nothing else. After all, the level of this auction was not high. At this time, the enthusiasm of the auction had subsided, and people had left one after another. The auction house was not stupid. There weren't many people left, so they wouldn't take out any good things. After all, the more people there were, the easier it was to drive up the price. If they wanted to make money, they could only wait until the next time. When everyone had more money, they would come and harvest another wave of leeks. Han Fei drank up the earth vein spring water in one gulp and held Nian's hand. "Let's go. Let's go back." Xiao Sei whispered, "Master Han Fei, if we go out now, I'm afraid." Han Fei grinned. "Don't worry. These few fish can't eat me." Less than half an hour later, someone came to Jin Quan and whispered, "Master, this person's name is unknown. He lives in the southern half of the top floor of the 10,000 Treasure Tower. His identity should not be weak. This person is accompanied by a 7 or 8-year-old little girl and an intermediate venerable." "It's him?" Jin Quan's pupils shrank slightly. He happened to meet a person who came out with a little girl. That person's condescending aura really made him very unhappy. Jin Quan sneered and put on a cold smile. "Inform 8th brother to be on standby." "Yes, master." Jin Quan secretly laughed. "Boy, how dare you ruin the relationship between me and Chu Ling? Who will die if you don't? It's a pity that all your king-grade materials are going to be mine." Then, Jin Quan continued, "Are you sure you can't find out the identity of this person?" The man nodded. "Young master, I only know that this person seems to come from Thunderfire Market Island. As for why he is there and what his background is, I don't know anything." Jin Quan nodded slightly. "Change the direction of the investigation. Look at the inner sea. Have any big ships come to Thunderfire Sky recently? If so, which immortal palace, what level? Find out." The other side. The 5 Elements disciple Bo E was also listening to someone's report. He muttered, "With a little girl? Unknown origin?" At this moment, Han Fei was playing with a small bottle. This was the Triple Tao pattern pill. To see what kind of pill was worth such a high price, Han Fei opened the bottle without hesitation. Buzz. The moment the bottle was opened, the fragrance of the medicine filled the entire room. Han Fei felt refreshed from head to toe, and his body felt extremely comfortable just by smelling the fragrance of the medicine. Looking at the elixir pill, it was light red in color. Apart from a strange quadrangular symbol, there were also 3 strange Tao patterns on the elixir pill. A string of information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name, 3rd grade tribulation pill, introduction. This is a supreme grade pill refined by an alchemist to pass the heavenly tribulation. This pill contains a great amount of energy and the power of the great Tao. It is helpful in breaking through the cultivation barrier and quickly increasing one's strength. If taken during a heavenly tribulation, it might be able to withstand a heavenly tribulation. Level, venerable level, quality, superb, contains chaotic energy. 8 Wisps remarks, it has a miraculous effect on breakthroughs and heavenly tribulations. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. This thing is awesome. It can even resist a heavenly tribulation? It seems a bit wasteful to use it now. I better keep it? I don't need it now. Dumb. Dear customer, Han Fei put away the third-grade tribulation pill and responded casually, come in. The next moment, the manager of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion walked in with Tiana with a smile. As soon as he came in, the manager felt something was wrong. The fragrance of medicine was amazing here. It seemed that Han Fei was looking at the triple Dao pattern pill just now. Tiana, on the other hand, felt dizzy at that moment. She was in a daze. Han Fei pointed casually. You're about to make a breakthrough. Don't force yourself. Thank you for your magnanimity, dear customer. Then the manager spoke to Tiana via voice transmission. The girl sat cross-legged on the ground and began to make a breakthrough. The manager said, Dear customer, I'm here to bring you ultra-quality spiritual stones. The 2 king shell armors you paid earlier and the remaining 170,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones are all here. In addition, Master Yu Qianxue said that after the auction, all the big ships will set sail and begin to return one after another. If you need, the Myriad Treasure Pavilion can also arrange a route for you to ensure your safety. Han Fei thought to himself, I don't need anyone to protect me. Han Fei said, Fine. I just want to know, how many ships from the Thunderfire Heaven are going to the inner domain? Which immortal palaces are they going to? The manager thought to himself, Han Fei is indeed from the inner domain. He's going to set off for the inner domain without thinking. The manager immediately said, Dear customer, after all, this is the Tiannan auction, not a large auction. Therefore, there are not many ships from the inner domain coming this time. At present, there are only ships from the Thunderfire Heaven going to the Medicine King Heaven and the Golden Crow Heaven. Han Fei couldn't help asking, Is there a ship from the Thunderfire Heaven to the Glass Heaven? The manager couldn't help but be surprised. Glass Heaven. Guest, there are very few ships from the Glass Heaven, the Immeasurable Heaven, the Sword God, and the Grand Mystery Heaven. They rarely come to the outer domain. However, if you go to the Medicine King Heaven or the Golden Crow Heaven, it's a different story. What the manager was implying was that if you wanted to go to these families, you had to go to the inner domain first. Because the immortal palaces in the Glass Heaven only seem to have dealings with the immortal palaces in the inner domain. Just as Han Fei was considering whether he should go to the Medicine King Heaven first and go through the motions, suddenly, Han Fei felt Snowmorn move slightly. Han Fei immediately looked at the door and then said to the manager, Okay, I've learned about this. As for where to go, if necessary, I'll ask this little girl Tiana to find you. Okay, dear customer. The manager also seemed to notice Han Fei's eyes and guessed that someone must have come. However, he didn't release his perception to investigate. The Myriad Treasure Pavilion only did business, and they didn't participate in anything about their customers. As if for Han Fei's convenience, the manager grabbed Tiana and escaped through the void. After the manager left, Han Fei hooked his finger and opened the door, only to see Bingxue Qiliang coming to his residence alone. Han Fei smiled. Please come in. Nian'er said, Beautiful sister. Bingxue Qiliang smiled at the girl shyly. You will be very beautiful when you grow up. After Bingxue Qiliang came in, Han Fei extended his hand and waved his hand on the table, and a green liquid appeared in a cup. Earth vein spring water? Han Fei smiled. I thought you wouldn't come. I didn't expect that you would come when I was about to leave. Bingxue Qiliang asked, May I know your name, fellow Taoist? Han Fei smiled. My name is Fan Datong. I'm a wandering refiner, Fan Datong. Bingxue Qiliang was lost for words. Why is there such a name? Also, I have to believe that you are a wandering refiner. However, it was meaningless to expose Han Fei at this moment. So, whatever Han Fei said was the truth. Bingxue Qiliang said, Fellow Taoist, you said in a voice transmission that you might be able to cure Qiling's illness. Is it true? Han Fei glanced at the teacup before Bingxue Qiliang and then picked up his own cup and had a sip. How many years do you have left to live? Normally, she wouldn't tell such a private thing to an outsider. However, Han Fei seemed to know her illness very well, so she didn't keep it a secret. The woman said, I have about 300 years, if my illness doesn't get worse. Han Fei frowned and suppressed the shivering snowmorn in Forge the Universe, thinking, if my guess is correct, the last soul of Bingxue Qiliang should be related to Snowmorn. In Snowmorn, it was either the human-shaped soul that was absorbed by him, or the secrets of Snowmorn itself. Han Fei said, how much power does the holy girl of the Snow God's temple have? Bingxue Qiliang was stunned. What does he mean? Han Fei said, you have to pay a lot to cure your illness. Bingxue Qiliang was shocked. What? As long as you can cure me, I can get whatever it is for you. Han Fei smiled casually. Don't be so sure yet. At least, you owe me a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Huh? Bingxue Qiliang was surprised, but then she said, if you can cure me, I can find a way to give you a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Han Fei waved his hand, and Snowmorn floated in midair. Bingxue Qiliang rose abruptly with a rare blush on her face, and Snowmorn approached her too. Bingxue Qiliang looked at Han Fei in shock. When she touched Snowmorn, she felt completely different from the weak and sickly feeling she had before. At this moment, Bingxue Qiliang realized what Han Fei meant when he said that she owed him at least a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. So, his sea-quelling bizarre treasure could cure her illness. Then, she couldn't let him lose a sea-quelling bizarre treasure for nothing, could she? Also, this sea-quelling bizarre treasure seemed to be very special to her. She had a feeling that she had seen this sword somewhere before. It was a weird feeling. It was as if she felt a calling, as if something was calling out to her. She had a feeling that if the sea-quelling bizarre treasure recognized her as its master, her illness might be cured immediately. Swoosh! Han Fei extended his hand and forcibly took back Snowmorn. In any case, it was his sword. Back then, he almost sucked himself to death for this thing. How could he give it away for nothing? Putting away Snowmorn, Han Fei asked, how much do you think it's worth? Chapter 1720. In Bingxue Qiliang's eyes, Han Fei was a mysterious and powerful big shot. Not to mention that his strength had reached the half-king level. The fact that he could take out the king shell armor and the sea-quelling bizarre treasure showed that he was not an ordinary person. The reason why Bingxue Qiliang came to see Han Fei was to inform him that many people already knew that he was the guest in Room 9 of the Sky Thunder at the auction. As for Han Fei's treatment, Bingxue Qiliang didn't have much hope. After all, even the Pill King could not save her. How could an ordinary person save her? But at this moment, Bingxue Qiliang believed it because she saw hope. Bingxue Qiliang said, the Snow God's temple has 3 sea-quelling bizarre treasures. Other than my master's scepter of ice and snow crown, I also have an ice and snow lotus. Cultivating on this lotus seat would allow one to calm their mind and achieve twice the results with half the effort. Over time, the lotus throne will also faintly refine the body and even increase one's resistance to extreme cold. Han Fei tilted his head and asked, what level? Icy snow early spirit, middle grade. Han Fei was intrigued. This was indeed a level higher than Snowmorn. Something that could improve one's cultivation should be something good. This thing was worth it. Han Fei said, what else? Although my sword is only a low-grade one, it can save your life. This is the only one in the world. Bingxue Qiliang pondered for a long time and said, I have a 3rd-layer Dao pattern fate pill that can extend your lifespan by 500 years. Han Fei thought to himself, I'm still young. Why do I need that stuff? So, Han Fei shook his head and said, what I drink is earth vein spring water. Why would I need that? Bingxue Qiliang said, maybe you won't need it, but it's a life-prolonging pill. 36 Profound Heavens is also an extremely rare item. What do you need? I can change it for you. Han Fei thought for a moment. What he needed now were treasures that contained energy and chaotic energy, as well as powerful body refining techniques. Void fishing was a cultivation technique, which was equivalent to a cultivation technique. It would only improve one's realm but not his physique. The path of body tempering had always been his focus, and he could not abandon it. Chaos Chi was actually relatively expensive and hard to come by. However, he could absorb it from the bodies of venerable realm great demons. If he were to seek the Tao of a half-monarch realm great demon, how much would he have to absorb? Therefore, Han Fei didn't need to worry. Han Fei said, I need ultimate treasures that contain extremely high energy and venerable level body refining techniques. How many can you provide? Bingxue Chuling said, because the Bingxue heaven isn't famous for body refinement, there are only 2 venerable level body refinement arts. However, if I use fate pills to trade, given some time, I should be able to find a few. Han Fei said with a smile, then you'd better hurry up. I don't have much time. Bingxue Chuling nodded, all right, I'll arrange for someone to take care of this later. As for supreme treasures that contained energy, they were usually spirit fruits. On the other hand, it was definitely the flower palace from the outer territories that had the most spirit fruits. 100,000 energy spirit fruits is the limit of what I can call upon. Any more and it will definitely attract the attention of others, and it may very well affect the transaction. Han Fei grinned. Deal. Bingxue Chuling said, it might take some time to prepare these. If fellow Taoist doesn't mind, you can follow my ship to the world of ice and snow for a while. Han Fei pondered for a moment. The 10,000 treasure pavilion could only arrange for him to go to the Golden Crow heaven and the Medicine King heaven, so he might as well go to the ice and snow heaven. Han Fei pretended to hesitate and said, is there a big ship to the glass sky in the ice and snow sky? After this is done, I need to make a trip to the glaze sky. Glass sky? Bingxue Chuling said, the location of the glaze sky and the greater darkness sky has always been difficult to find in the inner region. Even in the 13 heavens of the inner region, it was not easy to go to the glaze heaven and the greater darkness heaven. My icy snow sky does not have a route to glaze sky, but Glaze, Immeasurable, Sword God, and Tai Xian have formed an alliance. If he went to the Immeasurable Heaven or the Sword God Palace, he might be able to find a way to go to the Glaze Heaven. Our ice snow sky does have a flight route to Sword God Palace. Sword God Palace? Han Fei was briefly stunned. Damn it. Is it so troublesome to find a way in the chaotic Azure Sea? Taishan Heaven contained all the ancient books in the world, so it was fine that it was hard for them to find them. But what the hell is this glaze sky? Why is it so hard to find? Han Fei thought of something. Okay, then help me arrange a big ship to the Sword God Palace. Han Fei felt that he had made a lot of money this time. Even if he couldn't find the greater darkness sky in a short time, he could still have many body refining techniques. By then, with the demon purification pot's fusion, he might be able to create an ancient strange technique. However, Bingxue Chuling said, I will arrange our deal. But you are not in a good situation now, fellow Taoist. After all, the 10,000 treasure pavilion is just an auction house. They don't have the ability to isolate all the news and hide you. So, I'm afraid that someone has found out that you took action in Room 9 of the Heavenly Thunder. Han Fei grinned. I'll take care of my own business. You just need to prepare your ship to the icy snow sky, and I will come. Han Fei stayed in the thunder fire sky for a very short time, but he had gained a lot. In fact, Han Fei felt that it was because he knew too little about the outside world. The income in the thunder fire sky was so rich, so was the other immortal palaces. Therefore, Han Fei didn't care where he stayed. He had always been the type to eat wherever he went. If he stayed in one place for a long time, he might attract the attention of the enemy's top masters because he was too high profile. For example, would the Lord of Thunder and Fire come to him when he found out that he had the King's Shell armor? That was a material for refining sea-quelling bizarre treasures. And sea-quelling bizarre treasures were rare resources in the entire chaotic Azure Sea. The next day, Han Fei controlled the big ship alone and entered a common route. In the chaotic Azure Sea, the common route was the most common route. This kind of common route could be bought with money. It couldn't be more common. Usually, the common route didn't belong to any force, so the route was unremarkable and lacked opportunities. Generally speaking, if there was a large transaction of materials, few people would take the common route above board. Even if there were some, they would do it carefully or with the protection of strong masters. For ordinary pirates, they liked this kind of common route the most. However, for large pirate groups, the risks of robbing a common route were far greater than the benefits. After all, most of the pirates who took the common route didn't have much money. And how many people would get a share of the money for a pirate ship? And those who dared to take the common route were basically the kind of people who couldn't afford to lose. Even the pirates couldn't guarantee that they would win, right? If they were to be destroyed by the enemy, then they would lose both their men and their wealth. They would suffer a double loss. Therefore, big pirates generally disdained to rob this kind of common route. They usually robbed private exclusive routes. When Han Fei set foot on a common route to the Wind-Slasher Sky alone, he immediately attracted many people's attention. Why did he choose the Wind-Slasher Sky? That was because this route could reach the route of the Ice and Snow Sky if he deviated slightly. And when Bingxue Chuling traded with Han Fei, she had already given him the route of the Ice and Snow Sky. Although the exclusive route was, in a sense, a common route, there were more strong masters on this route. However, there were even more experts on this route. If something were to happen, they might even be able to find a king-tier expert to help them. But this didn't mean that the exclusive route was mysterious. It was just safer than the ordinary common route. In the evening, on the sea, violent energy was raging. From the perspective of the environment, the outer domain was actually not very good. Han Fei was continuing to modify the Avenger. He had retempered about 2/3 of it before, and there was still some left to be improved. This place was already very far from the Thunderfire Sky. On the extremely vast sea, although it was a common route, the distance between ships was still very far. After all, a big ship was just a drop in the ocean on the sea, extremely difficult to find. However, under such circumstances, a ship appeared near Han Fei's Avenger. At this moment, the Avenger hadn't hung up its flag yet. Therefore, in the eyes of others, it was just a big black ship. Oh no, to be precise, it was a big black ship. There was still a part that Han Fei hadn't finished modifying. Nian, or had been digesting the power in the past 2 days. Nian, or had been a peak-level law enforcer for a long time. In terms of comprehensive power, Nian, or had completely adapted to it. And after Han Fei's long education and Xiao Sei's explanation, Nian, or had a general understanding of the world. In addition, Han Fei had opened the tribulation pill yesterday, which seemed to have aroused Nian Er's vitality. In a few months, Nian Er should need to transcend the tribulation and make a breakthrough. Suddenly, Xiao Sei's face changed slightly. Not good, a ship is coming. Han Fei smiled. Take Nian Er to play with Earth 9. Han Fei opened the ship array and the sea-quelling painting at the same time. The mountain and river phantom wrapped Xiao Sei and Nian Er and sent them into the sea-quelling painting. Han Fei wasn't worried at all, but muttered, "This array is quite complicated. It's actually refined on the core of an ultra-quality divine weapon, using the core to drive the array, but it's still a bit weak. It seems that I have to refine it myself another day." At this moment, the void opened, and a big ship broke through the void and came. When a big ship arrived, 2 other big ships came. One of them still had a big flag, which was the symbol of the Medicine King Heaven. Jin Quan stood on the deck, facing Han Fei directly. "Boy, I was almost fooled by you. I thought you were a top heavenly talent from the Grand Pure Palace, the Chaos Palace, and the Wuji Palace. I didn't expect you to be nothing. You want to leave the Thunderfire Heaven like this? I'm afraid you're dreaming, right?" With that, Jin Quan looked at the other 2 big ships and couldn't help but say, "What a coincidence. If I don't come out, you don't come out." "What do you mean?" On the big ship with the 5 Elements flag, the 5 Elements disciple, Bo Yi, stood out and said, "Brother Jin, this person has a lot of treasures on him. Everyone who sees him should have a share, right?" On the other side was the young man from the Medicine King Heaven that Han Fei met last time. At this moment he looked at Han Fei with a sneer. I know you're going to die, but that child is innocent. You can give her to me. The young man said, You too, you can take all the treasures on this person. The Medicine King Heaven only wants the little girl next to this person. Because Han Fei's ship was open, they couldn't directly see through the Avenger, so they naturally didn't know that Nian was long gone. Hee, are you done? At this time, Han Fei smiled faintly. If you're done, is it my turn to speak? The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. Welcome to the robbery. Chapter 1721. Han Fei didn't know how often he robbed in the chaotic vast sea. He also didn't know how ferocious the pirates here were. However, when it came to robbing, Han Fei was really a veteran. Originally, Han Fei didn't expect to be able to completely hide his whereabouts. As a result, he managed to catch 3 big fishes with just one attempt. However, to Han Fei's surprise, the Medicine King Heaven also participated in this robbery. Although it wasn't a robbery, it wanted to rob people. Their nature wasn't much better. Han Fei's contempt made everyone feel like they had been fooled. The image that Han Fei created for everyone in the Thunderfire sky was different. The impression he left on Jin Quan was that he might be a genius disciple of the inner domain, protected by experts. The impression he gave the 5 Elements sect disciples was the same. Moreover, Han Fei was filthy rich. Therefore, after determining that Han Fei wasn't from the inner domain and didn't seem to have a half-king beside him, Bo Yi thought again and decided to make a trip. As for the Medicine King Heaven, he had learned of the actions of the Golden Crow Heaven and the Avalon of 5 Elements and felt that Han Fei definitely couldn't escape this calamity. Therefore, he only came to ask the Golden Crow Heaven and the Avalon of 5 Elements to give him face. Shockingly, 2 half-monarch realm experts appeared beside Jin Quan. The 2 looked around and shook their heads slightly. We didn't find any ambush, nor did we find any unusual movements on that ship. Jin Quan laughed. Kid, you're still pretending when you're about to die? Do you think I'm scared? Take him down. On the Avalon of 5 Elements side, a half-king realm expert also appeared behind Bo Yi. He smiled faintly. It's not good to have a conflict with the Golden Crow Heaven, so I'll help. When the time comes, at least we can rob his ship. It's not good for the Golden Crow Heaven to eat alone, so they have to give up some. The only one who was prepared to watch the show was the young man from the Medicine King Heaven. However, just as these people were about to make a move, they saw Han Fei wave his hand. It was as if a flawless coat on the Avenger was torn apart. On the huge black sail, there was the logo of the Skeleton Pirates. At the top of the mast, a pirate skull flag impressively appeared. Today is the first robbery of the Avenger Pirates. We need to find some people to sacrifice to the flag. You've come at the right time. When the battle began, the young man from the Medicine King Dome, who was watching from the sidelines, was dumbfounded. The Avengers? This man was actually a pirate? Jin Quan and Ban Yi were also stunned. This guy was actually a pirate? However, both of them had an idea. On their side, the Golden Crow Avalon alone had 2 demi-kings, and the Avalon of 5 Elements had 1 more. As for Jin Quan and him, both of them could be said to be experts at the peak of the Venerable Realm. With 3.5 monarchs holding down the fort, as long as a monarch didn't come, who could shake them? Even though Han Fei was a pirate, he had never heard of the Avengers. Who would care about them? Brother Jin, he shouted, we must finish this battle quickly. It won't be a good thing if this person has an ambush. The half-king realm expert beside Jin Quan also said, 7th young master, we will finish the battle within 10 breaths and quickly defeat him. I'm just afraid that behind this person is one of the top 10 pirate groups. That will be troublesome. Jin Quan snorted, make your move. Quickly take him down for me. Buzz, at that moment, Han Fei's momentum rose to its peak. The power of the Great Tao revolved, sweeping through the sky and sea with incomparable power. Swish, Han Fei appeared quietly at a speed that even the 3 half-king realm experts couldn't catch up with. A spear mark instantly broke through the void, and the speed was so fast that the 3 half-king realm experts could barely react, but they had no time to escape. On the side of the Golden Crow Heaven, one of the half-king realm experts was pierced through by Han Fei with one blow. His whole body exploded. Hiss, at that moment, the people of the three divine palaces were all dumbfounded. What kind of godlike power is this? A half-king realm expert couldn't even withstand the power of a spear strike? Another half-king realm expert of the Golden Crow Heaven shouted, "Not good, young master, run quickly. This person is a monarch." Everyone? At that moment, Jin Quan, Bo Yi, and Xiao Fan of the Medicine King Heaven were all dumbfounded. Fuck, what kind of joke is this? A monarch pretending to be a junior venerable? A monarch going to participate in such an ordinary auction? Does a monarch need to use himself as bait to deceive them? However, since the half-king realm expert had already spoken, he must have his reasons. Therefore, Jin Quan, Bo Yi, and the others flew back without hesitation. Since you're here, why do you still want to leave? Swish, swish, swish in the void, the projections of two half-king realm experts descended and directly stopped two of them. Han Fei grabbed the strange blue power and slashed the void. With a boom, heavy rain cracks appeared in the sky, and a rain of blood fell. A half-king realm expert was at least half a step into the monarch realm. If he died, there would naturally be some reaction. Jin Quan was shocked. A projection of a monarch? How is that possible? How can he be a monarch? On the other side, Xiao Fan of the Medicine King Heaven saw that a half-king realm expert didn't even have a chance to be reborn from a single drop of blood. Damn, how can I fight him? He already believed that this was definitely a monarch. One move and he could kill a half-king realm expert. What could be more visually shocking than this? Han Fei's projection of a half-king realm expert made Xiao Fan wet his pants. The Medicine King Heaven was not the kind of person who was particularly good at fighting. Generally speaking, the Golden Crow Heaven and the Avalon of 5 elements would certainly give him face. Therefore, this time he came alone. He wanted to bring Nian back and make a great contribution. However, when Han Fei's projection of a half-king realm expert blocked in front of the big ship and punched horizontally, the ship formation rumbled and couldn't move at all, he was frightened. The only one who could escape was by E of the Avalon of 5 elements. This person was only at the peak of the intermediate venerable realm. Even if he came out, he had always been cautious. The moment Han Fei killed the half-king realm expert in one move, he had already begun to move through the void. Fortunately, he brought a half-king realm expert to block Han Fei's projection. Otherwise, he would have died without a doubt. The big ship of the Avalon of 5 elements ran away, but Han Fei didn't care. If no one went to publicize the strength of the Avenger, then what was the point of this battle? Speaking of which, the half-king realm expert from the Avalon of 5 elements, with the 5 elements reversed and all kinds of great techniques, couldn't shake Han Fei and was overwhelmingly crushed. Han Fei, on the other hand, directly poked a hole in the Golden Crow Heaven's ship formation with a knock on the heavenly gate. Big Dipper. Han Fei appeared on the Golden Crow Heaven's ship again. He didn't need to do anything at all. His projection descended, and the remaining advanced venerable on the ship had nowhere to escape. Han Fei held the time sword in his hand and slashed the sky. In just 3 seconds, the old Golden Crow Heaven Half-King was directly cut in half by Han Fei. His soul was locked by Han Fei with the void lines, and there was nowhere to escape. Jin Quan exclaimed, "Fellow Taoist, don't go too far. I'm valuable. I'm one of the 7 great king candidates of the Golden Crow Heaven. I'm very valuable." Puff! Han Fei slashed out with his knife, and the void lines clenched. He thought that Jin Quan wouldn't even have the chance to be reborn from a single drop of blood and would die on the spot in an instant. However, to Han Fei's surprise, 7 giant flame shields appeared on the surface of Jin Quan's body and actually blocked his attack, which was comparable to a king's. Although his whole body was dripping with blood and his bones were broken, he had indeed blocked it. Han Fei looked at him with great interest. However, the next moment, the shield actually triggered the sun essence fire, and 6 raging pillars of fire struck down in a row, attempting to surround Han Fei and create an opportunity for him to escape. But unfortunately, no matter how talented this Jin Quan was, He was now facing the real power of a king. These people had no idea that within 10 seconds, Han Fei was a king in terms of power. Fighting with Han Fei during this period? It was tantamount to smashing an egg against a rock, courting death. Under Jin Quan's gaze, Han Fei actually opened his mouth and swallowed the sun essence fire. In the end, under Han Fei's slash, the so-called palace lord candidate was beheaded. Han Fei wantonly devoured the souls and vitality of these people. Boom! Boom! Even in the chaotic Azure Sea, the more experts that died, the bigger the changes in the weather would be. 2 half-kings, a peak venerable and an advanced venerable, died in succession, causing cracks to appear in the great Tao in the sky and a rain of blood poured down. However, the matter was far from over. The people of the Golden Crow Heaven were completely annihilated, and the only remaining half-king from the Avalon of 5 elements detonated a supreme-grade divine weapon in an attempt to escape. The result was obvious. The void was restricted by Han Fei, and this person was also killed on the spot. At this point, of the 3 major forces, only the Medicine King Heaven was left. Han Fei strolled through the void, feeling the power of the souls he had devoured. He held the Sun Moon shell in his hand and projected back. Seeing that Xiao Fan still wanted to use void teleportation, Han Fei couldn't help but sneer. Idiot, you couldn't escape at the beginning, and now you don't even have a half-king at home. Do you still think you can escape? Puff! The king's attack directly pierced through the Medicine King Heaven's ship formation. Han Fei's figure flashed and directly appeared on the large ship. One of Xiao Fan's middle-level venerable subordinates couldn't even move under Han Fei's pressure. Plop! The dignified Medicine King Heaven's genius actually sat on the ground at this moment. Seeing this person's appearance, Han Fei couldn't help but laugh. I really wonder if you ate medicine to reach the intermediate venerable realm? Remember I told you before, if this was the sea, you would have died long ago. How dare you come to take people away? Xiao Fan hurriedly said, My lord, Lord King, I didn't mean to harm anyone, didn't mean, puff. Han Fei pointed a finger at the void and stabbed it directly between Xiao Fan's eyebrows. The heavenly god's stab directly pierced through his 7 orifices and caused his divine soul to collapse. Don't kill me, chilla. Xiao Fan, in his confusion, actually threw a dark green poisonous substance at Han Fei. Han Fei turned into a shadow, took a few steps back, and reached out to touch a trace of the poisonous mist. The poisonous substance was escaping into Han Fei's body and was being devoured by his blood. A heavenly talent of the Medicine King Heaven actually uses poison. Then what's the difference between you and the 10,000 poison heaven? Han Fei held the embroidery needle and stabbed it 100 times in a row, directly destroying Xiao Fan's spiritual heritage, destroying his dantian, and causing his cultivation level to plummet. However, Han Fei didn't kill this person. He just grabbed Xiao Fan's Sun Moon shell, then looked at another intermediate venerable and faintly smiled. You can take him back. When you go back, remember to tell the others that I am the Lord of Vengeance, Han Fei, the captain of the Avengers. After the Medicine King Heaven's ship fled crazily, the old turtle said, Aren't you afraid of causing hatred? Why did you let him go? Han Fei disdainfully said, In order to cover up his actions, the 5-element disciple may not necessarily announce the deeds of the Avenger to the public. However, this person from the Medicine King Heaven probably hates me to the extreme and will definitely publicize the existence of the Avenger. Today, I killed 3 demi-kings and made a name for myself. How can no one publicize it? The old turtle was speechless. He thought to himself, that little guy from the Medicine King Heaven is really pitiful. Why didn't you provoke anyone? Why did you have to provoke the big demon Han Fei? Chapter 1722. History had proved countless times that the law of the jungle was the law of survival in the cultivation world. Han Fei had only planned to catch 1 fish, but he caught 3 at once. Han Fei rummaged through the Sun Moon shells he had looted. There were 3 half-king realm Sun Moon shells, which contained many precious materials. There were not many spiritual fruits and spiritual springs, because they basically didn't rely on these now. Most of them were ultra-quality spiritual stones. Because in the chaotic ocean, ultra-quality spiritual stones were the most convenient for transactions between venerable realm experts. He didn't know where these ultra-quality spiritual stones came from. However, they just had them. Others used ultra-quality spiritual stones as money, but Han Fei used them as resources for cultivation. Han Fei thought to himself, it's not that I'm not smart enough, but that these people don't recognize the usefulness of ultra-quality spiritual stones at all. Or in other words, their strength had reached the limit, and it was useless to use ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei scanned through the 3 half-king level cultivators. On average, each of them was worth more than 1,000,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones if they were sold in total. Han Fei felt that he had become a nouveau riche in an instant. In the sun-moon shell of the Golden Spring, Han Fei made a new discovery. In addition to the ultra-quality divine weapons, 420,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, there was even a third-grade tribulation pill. Han Fei was overjoyed. This pill alone was worth a lot. He had made a fortune this time. Just when Han Fei was about to look at Xiao Fan's sun-moon shell, he glanced at it and saw a crystal gourd in the sun-moon shell of the Golden Spring. There seemed to be something powerful there, and it was shining slightly. Han Fei reached out and grabbed the gourd in his hand. With a pop, Han Fei opened the stopper of the gourd. Suddenly, a golden pillar of fire rose into the sky, and there were bird cries. The next moment, a drop of golden blood rose into the air and fled. How could Han Fei let this treasure run away? Han Fei stretched out his hand and grabbed the drop of golden blood, and information appeared in his eyes. Name: Golden Crow Divine Blood. Introduction: The essence blood of the Golden Crow, a divine beast, contains extremely powerful power. Don't take it easily, or you will be devoured by the Golden Crow Divine Blood. Level: Divine Quality Ultra Quality, contains chaotic energy greater than 303 strands. Remarks: contains extremely powerful power. Those below the sea expansion realm are vulnerable to the backlash and will explode. Hiss! Han Fei's heart trembled. This thing is awesome. However, this was an unexpected surprise. To put it bluntly, the value of this drop of blood essence was comparable to his entire fortune. The old turtle was also shocked. Could this be the blood of gods? No, there's the sound of birds chirping. I'm afraid it's the blood of a divine beast. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. What's the difference between the blood of gods and the blood of divine beasts? The old turtle said, in essence, there's no difference. After all, the blood of a god was of a higher grade than the blood of a divine beast. After all, only when a divine beast matured would it have the chance to become a god. However, no matter what, this drop of blood is definitely not weaker than the battle god emperor blood that you devoured last time. Gulp. Han Fei licked his lips. As expected of one of the candidates for the palace master. This amount of luck was truly incredible to be able to obtain a treasure of this level. Unfortunately, it was now his turn to benefit. Putting away the Golden Crow Divine Blood, Han Fei looked at Xiao Fan's sun-moon shell again. However, Han Fei was greatly disappointed by what he saw. Look, this was the difference. This Xiao Fan was obviously raised by a stepmother. Except for 20,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones and an ultra-quality divine weapon, he had nothing else. Oh, there were also dozens of bottles of body polishing pills and divine transcendence pills. Han Fei took a look. Only the divine transcendence pills were better. The strongest effect was only suitable for beginner venerables or intermediate venerables. This thing could be kept for now. When the time came, he could give it to him. As for Nian, she probably didn't need it. Nian Er's growth didn't need pills at all. In a way, she had already become a venerable. Now, she just needed to get in touch with the human world, gain some social experience, and lay a solid foundation. Then she could continue to make breakthroughs. After quickly looking through these resources, Han Fei found that there were as many as 98 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Assuming that each ultra-quality spiritual stone contained only 800,000 points of spiritual energy, this was an astronomical number. Suddenly, Han Fei subconsciously counted with his fingers. It seemed that danger was coming. After all, this was a common route. If there was such a big movement all of a sudden, someone would probably notice it. Since he got the treasures, he'd better run away first. Then Han Fei directly dived into the turbulent sea that was not on the route. In this place that was not on the route, Han Fei held the nautical panorama and went directly to the big ship of ice Snow Chu Ling. About half an hour after Han Fei left. Swish, swish, swish. In the void, the phantoms of several big ships appeared. There was also a burly man holding a dark gold sledgehammer standing in this void. This man casually scooped up some broken corpses. His face changed. What an arrogant method. Killing people and robbing treasures, even disdaining to destroy the corpses. The Sun Moon Shell and the big ship of Golden Crow Heaven have been robbed. What is the background of the Avenger? Behind the man, a half-king realm Grand Venerable said, Thunder Lord, this person defeated 3 half-kings alone. If you count Jin Quan, he can be counted as 4 half-kings. Such a person? Could he be? This burly man was the Lord of Thunder and Fire. The first thing the 5-element disciple did after escaping was to inform the Lord of Thunder about the pirates. However, he reversed the truth and said that Han Fei took the initiative to rob them. The Lord of Thunder and Fire said lightly, It is indeed possible that he is an unborn king. But I'm confused. According to the 5-element disciple, this person is the young man who sold 2 pieces of king shell armor at the Tian'an auction. Doesn't that mean that the Thunder Fire Heaven will be in trouble? Then the Lord of Thunder and Fire said, A group of juniors, obviously they snatched the treasure first, but now they want to reverse the truth. They hit a stone themselves. No wonder the Thunder Fire Heaven doesn't recognize them. Go and warn the 5-element disciple. Also, come with me to see that little guy from the Medicine King Heaven. Let's see what he has to say. 2 days later. Because Ice Snow Chu Ling needed to cultivate and wait for Jin Quan and the others, the Snow Wind didn't teleport but anchored and waited halfway. Therefore, the Snow Wind did not teleport, but anchored and waited halfway. Lady Chu Ling, something bad has happened. Holy Maiden, a half-king realm king has come to escort. Creak, the cabin door opened and Ice Snow Chu Ling appeared on the deck in a snow-white cloak. When she saw a hammer-carrying expert outside the ship, she bowed slightly and said, carrying a purple gold Thunderfire hammer. You must be Senior Li Yuan Tian of the Thunderfire Heaven. The man nodded slightly. Li Yuan Tian greets the Holy Maiden. I came in a hurry because a powerful pirate group appeared on the common sea route nearby. 3 half-kings from the heaven of 5 elements and the Golden Crow have fallen. And the Holy Maiden. Ice Snow Chu Ling's pupils constricted slightly. Senior, please say it. Li Yuan Tian said, Holy Maiden, your fiancé Jin Quan has also fallen in the hands of that pirate group. My condolences, Holy Maiden. This is very bad. The Thunderfire Heaven has informed the kings of the heaven of 5 elements and is investigating. Ice Snow Chu Ling was stunned for a long time. Beside her, the 2 maids at the peak of the elementary venerable realm were already stunned. 3 half-kings have fallen? That pirate group even dared to kill Jin Quan? Holy Maiden, Ice Snow Chu Ling came back to her senses and her face darkened. Senior Li, please board the ship for a chat. May I ask which of the top 10 pirate groups did this? Li Yuan Tian landed on the deck and shook his head slightly. It's not the top 10 pirate groups. Ice Snow Chu Ling was surprised. Not the top 10 pirate groups? Who has the ability to kill 3 half-kings on the common sea route? Li Yuan Tian smiled bitterly. The Thunder Master suspects that it's a new king among the pirates. His name is Han Fei, also known as the Avenger, and he founded the Avenger Pirate Group. We are also investigating the news from Martial Emperor City. I believe there will be news in a few days. To avoid trouble, Holy Maiden, please set sail for the Ice Snow Sky immediately. Ice Snow Chu Ling's heart sank. Although she had her suspicions, since Li Yuan Tian was here, she couldn't possibly use cultivation as an excuse to stay any longer. At this moment, a voice sounded from the bottom of Ice Snow Chu Ling's heart. Let's go. I'm already on the ship and in your cultivation cabin. Ice Snow Chu Ling's heart skipped a beat. However, her expression remained the same. She shouted, heave the anchor and return immediately. Yes, holy maiden. Ice Snow Chuling only thought that Han Fei's strength had reached the level of a half-king. However, she never expected that Han Fei had killed 3 half-kings in a row. Yes, when Li Yuantian mentioned this matter, she had already guessed who did it. There was no reason for the top 10 pirate groups to rob the common sea route at this time. Only Han Fei mysteriously went out to sea with a body full of treasures. She even reminded him, but he asked her to wait for a few days. But now Jin Quan and the others were all dead. And Han Fei came. Bing Xue Chuling would never believe that this had nothing to do with Han Fei. After arranging for Li Yuantian, the big ship began to teleport. Ice Snow Chuling also came to the cabin and saw that Han Fei was looking at the fish skin map. Seeing Ice Snow Chuling come in, Han Fei smiled faintly. It's really rare to see a route recorded on a fish skin map. Ice Snow Chuling looked at Han Fei strangely and asked uncertainly, "Are you a king?" It must be noted that taking a king to the ice snow sky and a half-king to the ice snow sky were 2 different concepts. Han Fei smiled faintly. To kill a half-king, you don't necessarily need the strength of the sea expansion realm. In any realm, there are strong and weak, and so are the half-kings. Seeing that Ice Snow Chuling looked a little nervous, Han Fei couldn't help but stand up and say with a smile, "At least, you and the ice snow sky have nothing to do with me. Also, shouldn't you find me a fur cloak? Otherwise, my outfit will look out of place." Chapter 1723. Bing Xue Chuling felt that this trip to the Thunder City was a bit dreamy. Although she didn't like Jin Quan, the Golden Crow Heaven forced her teacher to agree. Although she didn't want to, there was nothing she could do. Since she knew that pure yang power couldn't help her recover, she had begun to resist this kind of combination. However, on this trip to the Thunder City, not only did her terminal illness get better, but even Jin Quan was cured by Han Fei. Bing Xue Chuling didn't believe that Han Fei's name was his real name. After all, Han Fei used the name Fan Datong to fool her before. But no matter what, she had no choice but to believe Han Fei at this moment. After all, the strongest people on this ship were Li Yuantian and herself. As for Han Fei, he was an existence that could kill 3 demi-kings in a row. If Jin Quan was included, he could kill 4 demi-kings in a row. This kind of expert was not someone she could resist. Hearing Han Fei's question, Bing Xue Chuling threw out a piece of turf and said, "This is the snow velvet bark, a specialty of our ice and snow heaven. I can help you refine it." Han Fei smiled. "No, I can do it myself. By the way, how long will it take from here to the ice and snow heaven?" Bing Xue Chuling said, "According to the endurance of the hull, sailing at a normal speed, it will take about half a month." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay. See you in half a month." Han Fei disappeared right in front of Bing Xue Chuling. Bing Xue Chuling was dumbfounded. She quickly looked at Li Yuantian on the deck outside the ship, only to find that Li Yuantian didn't notice it at all. At this moment, Bing Xue Chuling thought to herself, "I'm afraid that Han Fei is indeed a king. This is a hidden king who has never been heard of before. It seems that he just popped out of nowhere." However, Bing Xue Chuling didn't think that Han Fei would leave. He must still be on the ship. So, since he disappeared in front of her, he must have gone to a certain small world. Or he went to his origin sea. And how could a person who had a small world be an ordinary person? And if he had a origin sea, it would prove that Han Fei was undoubtedly a king. Therefore, no matter from which aspect, Bing Xue Chuling didn't think that Han Fei needed to deceive her. Half a month later, when Bing Xue Chuling successfully arrived at the Snow God Temple, Li Yuantian cupped his fists at her and said, "Saintess, since I have arrived, I have to go back and report. I will take my leave now." Bing Xue Chuling bowed. "Thank you for taking care of me along the way, Senior. I should have invited Senior to stay in the Snow God Palace for a while, but the Thunder Fire Heaven is currently in troubled times, so it would not be appropriate to stay for long. Be careful on the road, Senior." The main city of the Ice Snow Sky was called Snow City. In Snow City, there was a place similar to the Central Holy City, and that was the Snow God Palace. The Snow God Palace was not a palace of immortals. It was just a city in the center of the Snow City. The real snow god's palace rarely appeared. Not long after they got off the boat, Bingxue Chuling said, "Little Exen, little Ya, help me check on the energy fruits and cultivation methods I arranged. How is it going?" "Yes, Chuling Saintus." After sending the others away, the space in Bingxue Chuling's cabin shook. Han Fei walked out of it openly. Of course, Han Fei came down later and suppressed his strength to the peak level of a junior venerable. He was like a sidekick on the boat. When she saw Han Fei, Bingxue Chuling secretly sighed. He had been here all the time. Han Fei came to Bingxue Chuling and said, "You can arrange a place for me to meet you. I can't stay in the ice-snow sky for long. Give me the things and we'll be even." For Han Fei, Snowmorn was no longer of much use. Also, Snowmorn was just a low-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure after all. It was not very precious. If he could exchange it for so many things, it would be worth it. Of course, if he exchanged the weapon, he could win Bingxue Chuling's favor. Among the 36 mysterious heavens, the Yin-Yang heavens and the Waterwood heavens were both forced to enter the savage abyss. It was not hard to imagine how difficult their situation was back then. Now, if he could win over some forces, even if they remained neutral, it would be of great help to him. Of course, if they still opposed him, Han Fei wouldn't be afraid of having one more enemy as long as they could withstand his mental torture. When Bingxue Chuling was about to show Han Fei where to go, Han Fei suddenly sensed something. He looked at the sky and said telepathically, "A king is here." Before Bingxue Chuling could be surprised, she saw a human figure appear not far away from her with a swoosh. Han Fei, who had disguised himself as Bingxue Chuling's servant, was looking at the newcomer in shock. Bingxue Chuling was stunned for a long time to see him. Eventually, she took a deep breath and said, "Greetings, Master Wuji." Han Fei was rather creeped out after hearing that. This handsome young man who looked to be in his 20s was the master of the Wuji Palace? Judging from his green clothes, the white fan in his hand, and the way he raised his eyebrows, he clearly had the spirit of a young man. Who could have predicted that he was a king? Han Fei pretended to be shocked and quickly cupped his hands. "It's an honor to meet you, Master Wuji." The master of the Wuji Palace nodded casually and said, "The last time I saw you was more than 300 years ago. At that time, you had just been elected as a holy lady and were only a beginner venerable. Who could have predicted that after 300 years, you had already reached the peak level venerable? Alas, you are suffering from a serious disease, and I can't do anything about it." "What a pity," Bingxue Chuling said respectfully. "Thank you for your concern, Master. I just have some clues about the disease. I just hope that I can make one last effort." The master of the Wuji Palace smiled gently. In his opinion, Bingxue Chuling couldn't survive. What was the point of trying hard? Even the medicine king couldn't cure her. Who else could? He said, "Chuling, did you encounter any accidents on your way to the Thunder City?" Bingxue Chuling saw that Han Fei had disguised himself so well that even the master of the Wuji Palace didn't notice him. She shook her head lightly. "The Master of Thunder and Fire ordered Senior Li Yuantian to escort me all the way, so there was no accident." The Master of the Wuji Palace said, "Jin Quan is dead. It seems that you don't feel sorry for him, do you?" Bingxue Chuling was not afraid of being laughed at by the king. Therefore, she said frankly, Chuling's relationship with him wasn't consensual to begin with. Chuling was half happy and half worried about Jin Quan's death. "I'm happy that I don't have to marry him, but I'm worried that the Golden Crow Heaven will blame the Snow God's temple." The Golden Crow Heaven is ranked 4th among the 36 Black Heavens. How can they be so stingy? But don't go out recently. Han Fei is suspected to be a king. Not only the 36 Black Heavens but also the top 10 pirate groups are looking for him. Bingxue Chuling pretended to be surprised. Although she wanted to look back at Han Fei, she held back. The master of the Wuji Palace said lightly, "You don't have to worry about the specific reason. In order to catch this person, the 36 Black Heavens and the Martial Emperor City have issued a kill order. I happened to come here and wanted to take a look at you. I'm leaving now." Bingxue Chuling bowed. "Goodbye, master of the Wuji Palace." Han Fei also cupped his hands. Goodbye, master of the Wuji Palace. Although it was the master of the Wuji Palace, Han Fei was very reluctant to bow. Other people were nervous when they saw a king, but Han Fei wasn't. He had already killed a king. Why would he be afraid? The master of the Wuji Palace suddenly said, your follower's temperament isn't bad. A 9th grade spiritual heritage is also rare. Bingxue Chuling said, that's why I recruited him. The master of the Wuji Palace nodded slightly. But, hey, I'm leaving. After the master of the Wuji Palace left, Bingxue Chuling secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She walked with Han Fei. After a while, Han Fei said first, I'm leaving. Bingxue Chuling glanced at Han Fei. You also pissed off the top 10 pirate groups? Even the Martial Emperor City issued a kill order? Han Fei touched his nose and said, I'm also very curious. When did I piss off the top 10 pirate groups? Can you help me find out about this? Han Fei was also dumbfounded. From the beginning to the end, I only pissed off a Marauder's pirate group, didn't I? Bingxue Chuling said, I will temporarily arrange an ice and snow residence for you. Wait for a few days. The resources will be ready as soon as possible. As for the kill order, I will keep an eye on it. Han Fei didn't intend to follow Bingxue Chuling into the snow god's temple. The old turtle didn't speak until Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling separated and lived in the so-called ice and snow residence. The old turtle said, Han Fei, this Wuji king is extremely strong. He is definitely not as strong as the White Armor Emperor. This person's strength may be several times stronger than the White Armor Emperor's. Han Fei frowned. What do you mean? How can you tell his strength? The old turtle said, it's based on my experience. If I can look at him directly and measure his pressure, I will be able to make a decision. With this person's strength, even the Life Queen and the White Armor Emperor are no match for him. You have to be careful. Han Fei was horrified. Fortunately, he had disguised himself at the beginning. Otherwise, even if he exerted his full strength, it would be a problem whether he could escape or not. Han Fei said, Old Yuan, isn't there a direct way to distinguish the strength of the kings? For example, what is their strength equivalent to? The old turtle said, there are no beginner, intermediate, advanced, or peak stage kings in the king's realm. They are only measured by the origin of great ways. The so-called origin of great ways can be understood as the origin C. The larger the origin C, the stronger one is. It's hard to measure it by strength. I can only say that the origin C of the White Armor Emperor's level is about 800 kilometers long and wide. Han Fei's heart did a flip. His strength is about 80,000 waves at most. Is there any connection? The old turtle said, some people might think so, but the great ways are never equal to strength. I asked you to accumulate chaotic aura in order to open up the origin C. In this step, you can't be weaker than others. Chapter 1724. From the old turtle, he learned the difference in strength of the origin C of kings. Han Fei made a preliminary judgment in his heart. The old turtle said that the strength of the master of the Wuji Palace was at least several times that of the White Armor Emperor. Even if Han Fei measured it by strength, the strength of the master of the Wuji Palace was at least about 150,000 waves. Of course, in terms of strength, one more wave was a lot. It didn't seem appropriate to double it in this way. However, Han Fei only needed to know that his current limit was about 60,000 waves in a short period of time, and he couldn't be stronger than that. Therefore, at this moment, if he encountered the master of the Wuji Palace, he would almost certainly die. Fortunately, the god-deceiving precious technique worked well. However, the master of the Wuji Palace appeared in the chaotic vast sea domain, which confirmed Han Fei's guess. The death of the Ba King crab must have attracted his attention. Otherwise, why would the master of the Wuji Palace come to the outer domain in person? Was he really here to greet Bingxue Chuling? Wasn't that bullshit? Half a day later, outside the ice and snow courtyard, someone delivered a jade slip. Han Fei took it and scanned it with his soul. At that time, even he was speechless. This jade slip was naturally sent by Bingxue Chuling. He didn't know which traitor in the Martial Emperor city promised to kill his avengers with a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Needless to say, Han Fei felt that this person must be the crazy Four Kings. Is there something wrong with this traitor's head? Is the sea-quelling bizarre treasure free? Just to hunt me, you're really willing to pay a high price. Besides, this person's hunting order only said that his strength had reached the Demi-King realm and that he called himself the Avenger. There was no other description. Logically speaking, who would really pay attention to such a vague order to kill? However, the person's bounty was too high. He offered a sea-quelling bizarre treasure right away, which showed how much the crazy Four Kings valued him. However, in the jade slip, he saw Bingxue Chuling's comment. She wrote, "The other party's purpose is not to hunt you, but to make you on the wanted list. Any hunting mission on the wanted list will be widely noticed. So, that person is just making enemies for you." Han Fei thought to himself, I see. He had thought that the Mad Four Kings had really given him a sea-quelling bizarre treasure and asked someone to hunt him down. It seemed like it was just to make him a public enemy. Han Fei immediately sneered. Son of a bitch, you're really cunning. Just wait till I become king. I'll be the first to destroy your marauders. I'd like to see how many people still dare to talk about this bounty. Han Fei continued to read. According to the news from Bingxue Chuling, because Han Fei was involved in the death of Jin Quan, almost all the ships in the outer domain of Lei Huqing were investigated. Now, it could be said that Han Fei was famous in the outer 13 heavens. Besides, taking care of children had become Han Fei's trademark. Han Fei chuckled and didn't care. The outer 13 skies could not be compared to the Yin-Yang sky or the Waterwood sky. There was danger everywhere in this sea region. As long as he wasn't on the flight route, he wouldn't go astray. He wasn't afraid of getting into trouble. In fact, for someone like him who possessed the Multitude Navigator, it could be said that he was like a fish leaping through the vast ocean. He was very free. 10 days later, Bingxue Chuling was very efficient. This might have something to do with her illness. For so many years, she had sacrificed a lot of her lifespan for her explosive growth. It could be said that whenever there was a life-saving treasure in the ice and snow heavens, she would use it first. Therefore, when she confirmed that Han Fei could save her, she saw hope, and of course, she prepared resources faster. This afternoon, Han Fei was still sleeping and eating hot pot in Forge the Universe. He was waiting for the bloodline evolution to be completed. In the outside world, he would be able to achieve this bloodline evolution in another 7 days. The old turtle said, "She's here." So fast? Han Fei's heart thumped and he appeared in the courtyard. Opening the array, Han Fei couldn't help but tease, "That's quite fast." Bingxue Chuling flashed in. In the next second, she let out a long sigh of relief and said, "Because I used my own connections and didn't look for her in the name of the Snow God's temple. So, I have to be very careful. Otherwise, it would only take me a few days to trade with you." Han Fei could understand. He didn't want to involve the king of the ice and snow heavens in this matter. When he was full, he could just slip away. What was the personality of the king of the ice and snow palace? He didn't know her at all. If Bingxue Chuling had bad intentions, the best time for her to make a move was when the master of the Wuji Palace was present. However, she didn't do that at that time. Now, whether she would find the king of the ice and snow heavens or not, Han Fei didn't care. Han Fei went straight to the point. "How about it? Let's take a look at the goods first." Bingxue Chuling had no scruples. She threw a sun-moon shell over and said, "Here are 100,000 energy fruits and a total of 6 body tempering techniques. 2 of them are heaven-level ultra-quality. I can only find these in such a short time." Han Fei smiled faintly. "That's fine. What about the ice-snow lotus?" Bingxue Chuling paused for a moment. "If you make a move, I won't be able to fight back. So, I would like to swear by the heavens that this is a fair deal." Han Fei smiled faintly. This woman is quite shrewd. Energy fruits and techniques were not a big deal. However, a middle-grade sea-quelling bizarre treasure was not something that could be bought with money. It was all about luck. Han Fei shrugged and said, "Of course." After the two of them swore to the heavens, Bingxue Chuling breathed a sigh of relief and took out an ice lotus with a radius of 3 meters. Han Fei's eyes immediately lit up. The lotus petals of this lotus were crystal clear and carved as if they were real. Part of it seemed to be covered with snow, like a work of art. And in Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name Ice Snow Lotus. Introduction. It's made of God's ice lotus, extremely cold original liquid, moonlight gravel, blue crystal essence. Supplemented by the soul of the ice lotus kingfish, which is of great benefit to cultivation. Quality C. Quelling Bizarre Treasured Soul Attachment. Ice Lotus Kingfish Effect. It can eliminate distracting thoughts, calm the mind, comprehend the truth, promote physical cultivation, promote the absorption of spiritual energy and chaotic energy, and subtly improve the physique. Long-term consumption can enhance cold resistance. Recastable, unrefined. Note, the effect is doubled when you wear the Ice and Snow Scepter and the Ice and Snow Crown. When Han Fei saw this thing, he was tempted. Wouldn't it be more effective if he used it to cultivate and forge the universe? Even if he didn't enhance the power of the time chain, it should be enough. In fact, what surprised Han Fei was that the Ice Snow Lotus was a set. If it was used with the Ice and Snow Scepter and the Ice and Snow Crown, the effect would be multiplied. When the 3 sea quelling bizarre treasures were put together, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was an ultra-quality sea quelling bizarre treasure. However, it was traded by Bingxue Chuling. It was obvious that Bingxue Chuling's position in the Snow God's temple was higher than he thought. Han Fei threw Snowmorn casually and stabbed it into the ground. Han Fei snorted in his heart. Since you don't want to recognize me as your master, go find your real master. Well, I don't care about it anyway. Han Fei knocked the void with one hand, and a large amount of blood energy flowed out of Snowmorn and was absorbed by Han Fei. Crack! In the end, Han Fei cut off the connection between him and Snowmorn with the power of his soul. Tinkle, tinkle. After Han Fei cut off the connection between him and Snowmorn, Snowmorn flew to Bingxue Chuling with a swish, shivering. At that moment, Han Fei saw that Bingxue Chuling and Snowmorn resonated. Then, a shadow seemed to be attached to Bingxue Chuling's body from Snowmorn. Hu Kacha! Almost instantly, Bingxue Chuling made a breakthrough. She quickly took out the abundant resources from the Sun Moon shell to stabilize her level. Seeing that, Han Fei's lips twitched and he put away the Ice Snow Lotus angrily. Damn it. She's like this when she meets her real master? Why did she draw so much of my essence blood when she signed the contract with me? An hour passed. When Bingxue Chuling's resources were almost exhausted and Han Fei was considering whether or not to help her, Bingxue Chuling's level was finally stabilized. At this moment, Bingxue Chuling slowly opened her eyes, which glittered. I'm cured. Han Fei shrugged and said, by the way, you've become a half-king too. I suddenly feel that I'm at a disadvantage. Bingxue Chuling blushed. Who would have thought that their search for the dragon blood fruit would lead to them finding a way to treat their illness by chance? She didn't know what the relationship between her and the sword was. However, Bingxue Chuling knew that what was sealed in the sword was probably the soul that she had lost. Bingxue Chuling couldn't help but say, Han Fei, thank you. But I still want to ask you, where did you get the sword? It may have something to do with my own secrets. Han Fei was about to make up a random reason, when his fingers moved and his face changed. In his heart, the old turtle reminded him, there's a king. In the next moment, an ethereal voice echoed in the courtyard. I got this sword from the Snow God's temple. It's been 80,000 years. I didn't expect that you'd finally come out. White snow was falling from the sky above the courtyard. A delicate woman, wearing a white gauze robe, holding a scepter and an ice crown, arrived quietly. Narrowing his eyes, Han Fei said slowly, Snow Lady. Bingxue Chuling's face changed greatly. Chapter 1725. The Snow Lady was the queen of the Snow God's temple and Bingxue Chuling's teacher. Her identity could be easily identified from the ice scepter in her hand and the ice crown on her head. At this moment, Han Fei was ready to fight at any time. After all, the ice lotus, the ice scepter, and the ice crown were a set. When the three of them were combined, it would be much easier. Maybe that was the secret of the ice and snow heaven. Hearing what the Snow Lady said, Han Fei frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" The Snow Lady glanced at Bingxue Chuling casually. "The last bit of my soul wasn't in the chaotic ocean. But it showed up today, which means that you're not from the chaotic ocean. Are you from the Yin-Yang heaven?" Hiss! Immediately, Han Fei gasped. How could she have guessed it correctly? Bingxue Chuling was shocked too. Yin-Yang heaven? The Yin-Yang heaven that has disappeared for countless years? The Snow Lady said casually, "Chuling, do you know why your lifespan is running out so fast?" Bingxue Chuling asked, "Isn't it because of my coldest body?" The Snow Lady slightly shook her head. "Because you're not from this era. You're so powerful because you're not a mortal fetus, but a mysterious fetus born in the snow. However, you were born at the wrong time. At that time, human beings went east, and the snow god's temple didn't know whether to leave or not. In the end, I sealed your congenital fetus in the ice lotus and went east with you." Bingxue Chuling had a headache. She knew about the human beings going east. But was she from 70 or 80,000 years ago? She really didn't know. The Snow Lady never told her that either. Han Fei was also slightly surprised. Was she another person who had lived for tens of thousands of years and had been frozen until now? The Snow Lady said unhurriedly, "Although I took away the strange fetus, you had already distinguished yourself and grown up. This sword was your weapon back then. It was left in the Yin-Yang heaven during the battle against the sea demons. So, after you broke out of the fetus, you were sealed in the ice lotus for too long, and you lacked the remaining soul of your original body. I didn't expect to see you again today." Han Fei said casually, "That's really weird." The Snow Lady replied calmly, "It's not strange at all. There were countless ways to survive in this world. Some people were reincarnated into another body, others were reincarnated. The only difference was that the choices were different. But no matter which method it was not a long-term solution, and there would be a time limit. For example, if Chu Ling did not become a monarch in 300 years, she would definitely die. Even if she became a king, her lifespan would at most be 10,000 years. But when the time comes, I will tell her the truth, and she will go explore the savage abyss." Han Fei smiled faintly. "You didn't come here to tell me a story, did you?" The Snow Lady looked at Han Fei. "The Yin-Yang heaven hasn't appeared for a long time, and the world has almost forgotten about you. You appeared at this time, and even the master of the Wuji Palace has taken action. You must be Han Fei of the Avengers, right?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Master Snow Maiden is quite good at guessing. But even so what?" Han Fei knew that the Snow Girl didn't mean to kill him. However, no matter what, he had been too careless this time. Although the Snow Girl herself might not be able to find him, she could easily know what Bingxue Chuling was doing. This time, he was exposed because of his carelessness or because of his arrogance. After all, Han Fei felt that he was not weak now. He already had the combat power of a king, and he also had the time technique, so he didn't take the Snow God's palace seriously. The Snow Girl sighed faintly. "In the Yin-Yang heaven, you must be the strongest person in the Yin-Yang heaven now, since you have the combat power of a king. So, you are the current master of the Yin-Yang heaven, right?" "Wow!" Bingxue Chuling looked at Han Fei in surprise. "So, I have been cooperating with the master of the immortal palace?" No wonder Han Fei could easily slaughter a half-king. No wonder Han Fei was full of disdain when he heard about the Golden Crow heaven. No wonder Han Fei had the king's shell armor when he attacked. As the master of the immortal palace, even if she was not a king, she could be compared with the sea expansion kings of the 36 profound heavens. How could Jin Quan, a so-called king candidate, compare with such a character? Han Fei smiled lightly. "Master Snow Maiden has a good eye. It seems that I have come to the wrong place on this trip to the ice and snow heaven." However, the Snow Girl shook her head slightly and said, "You should be glad that you came to the ice and snow heaven. Maybe because of luck, after you came out of the savage abyss, the first one to see through your identity was me, not any other king of the immortal palace." Han Fei thought to himself, "You're wrong. The first one to see through my identity was Ba King Crab. However, among the 36 profound heavens, the first one to see through his identity was indeed the snow girl in front of him. The snow girl said, "Your current realm shouldn't be a king, right? Otherwise, the ice snow lotus shouldn't have much effect on you. Besides, as soon as you become a king, you look extraordinary. Your every move is full of charm, but you still lack something." Han Fei said indifferently, "So?" The snow girl was sure that Han Fei didn't look nervous at all. His words and brows were also full of arrogance. Obviously, even if he was not a king, he had the combat power of a king. This was indeed shocking to the snow maidens. It seemed that the previous rumors were not wrong. However, although the great Tao of Yin and Yang of the Yin-Yang heaven was powerful, it wasn't so powerful that a half-king could fight a king. Obviously, Han Fei had other opportunities. The snow girl said indifferently, "Do you know that the snow god's temple is from the Yin-Yang heaven?" The snow girl said, "Back then, I was also from the Yin-Yang heaven. Among the 36 immortal palaces, only I was from the Yin-Yang heaven. That's why there are ruins of the snow god's temple in the Yin-Yang heaven." Han Fei said, "I've never heard of it." The snow girl said indifferently, "I don't know what your road to becoming a king is like. However, the unusual changes in the Savage Abyss happened not long ago. In less than a year, you pissed off the top 10 pirate groups and killed the half-king of the 5 Elements Heaven and the half-king of the Golden Crow Heaven. I don't even know why the master of the Wuji Palace is here. The outside world is in turmoil. Do you want to go to the glass sky? It's not going to be easy. I suggest you wait in the Snow God's temple for half a year." Han Fei looked at Bing Bingxue Chuling, who was also dumbfounded. "I didn't mention anything about the glass sky." The snow girl said, "What can you hide from me in the ice and snow world? Chuling wanted to arrange a big ship for you to go to the Sword God's temple, but now all the big ships from the outer domain to the inner domain are being monitored." Han Fei thought, "I just killed a few half-kings. Why is there such a big fuss?" The snow girl said, "You must have killed more than a few half-kings to have attracted so much attention from the inner domain. I think you must have done something else after you came out. I don't want to know exactly what you did. It's just a reward for saving Chuling." Han Fei thought, it must be about the death of the Ba King. In this matter, he got the little vine and the gravitational force. That should be the reason why the master of the Wuji Palace came to investigate. Han Fei secretly counted his fingers. This should be a secret. However, Han Fei wasn't worried. At least, he still had the 9-palace ruler of fate. At the very most, he could just use the fortune ruler to measure his luck every day. Han Fei asked, "Why half a year?" The snow girl said leisurely, "In half a year, the land of the king grave will open. The venerables and heavenly talents of the inner and outer domains, the mermaids, the undersea humans, and the 100 demons will all go there. There may be opportunities to become kings. More importantly, someone from the glass sky will go there too." Han Fei's heart trembled. This half a year was worth waiting for. Since the glass sky would also go, then when the time came, he could just follow the people of the glass sky back, wouldn't it be fine? Han Fei nodded slightly. "But I'll stay in the snow god's temple for half a year." Although the snow girl was from the Yin-Yang heaven, she didn't need to help Han Fei now that she was already a king. Once the Wuji Palace or the other immortal palaces learned about this, the ice and snow world would probably suffer a heavy blow. Therefore, if the snow girl didn't have other plans, she was really loyal to him. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. "Master Snow Girl, do you trust me so much? Aren't you afraid that I will be suppressed by the other immortal palaces?" The snow girl smiled faintly. The Yin-Yang heaven has been silent for too long and has no allies outside. So, you won't give up if you can win the friendship of the Snow God's palace. You don't have to worry about my plan. Before the Yin-Yang heaven can compete with the Wuji Palace, it won't benefit the Snow God's palace. Han Fei nodded slightly. So be it. It would be a waste of time for him to go to the Sword God's palace. If he found the route to the glass sky from the Sword God's palace, there might be more problems. Besides, What if the route from the outer domain to the inner domain was really monitored? If he went out rashly, there might be more trouble. Although he was under the banner of the Avengers, this was just his temporary identity. He hadn't become a king yet, so he wasn't strong enough to compete with the top 10 pirate groups and the 36 Black Heavens. The Snow Girl didn't ask about other things about the Yin Yang Heaven, and she didn't need to know. And Han Fei dared to stay here, which showed that he was very confident. The Ice and Snow world didn't rank very high among the 13 outer domains. However, the Snow Girl knew that the Yin Yang Heaven used to rank very high. If Han Fei could rise, then the Ice and Snow world would naturally rise. Of course, this wasn't the main reason. The Snow Girl knew the real reason. It had been almost 90,000 years since Han Fei's last journey to the east. For human kings like them, a lifespan of 100,000 years was a threshold. Kings weren't immortal. Did they want to live? Either they became kings, or they could only raise the next generation. Therefore, even Han Fei didn't understand why the Snow Girl wanted to inherit the Ice and Snow Lotus when Han Fei saved Bingxue Chuling, so she didn't mention a word about the Ice and Snow Lotus. The first update? Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1726. After the Snow Girls left, Bingxue Chuling looked at Han Fei in shock and bowed slightly. It's an honor to meet you, Palace Master Yin Yang. Han Fei wasn't used to Bingxue Chuling's bow. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. You can either call me Han Fei or the 9th Immortal Master. Palace Master Yin Yang? That's horrible. Bingxue Chuling, Han Fei asked, what is the place where the kings died? Bingxue Chuling explained, it was once a chaotic sea where human beings went east. At that time, sea demons, behemoths, and sea humans also participated. However, the kings had a great war when they became kings. The cause was unknown. At that time, many kings died. As such, the place where the king had fallen had become a very dangerous place. Those who weren't heavenly talents would almost certainly die if they went in. Han Fei realized that maybe it was the internal war of the Divine Palace that King Ba mentioned. It was easy to understand why this place became a dangerous place. For example, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City had become a dangerous place. And this dangerous place was actually caused by the battle between him, the Life Queen, the White Armor Emperor, Xue Fan, and the Divine Prince. Han Fei asked, so many people went there. Are there many opportunities there? Bingxue Chuling nodded. Of course. It's called the place where the kings died. In fact, some people became kings, and some didn't. Many treasures were buried along with their deaths. It's said that a lot of those treasures came from an unparalleled secret realm in the east. Han Fei knew what secret realm Bingxue Chuling was talking about. It was the place where his mother and old Han escaped by digging a tree. However, according to Han Fei's memory, venerables should be able to go to that place. But the place where the kings died? Obviously, it wasn't that secret realm, but more like a place where people fought for treasures. Han Fei smiled. In that case, help me get an identity. It'll be convenient for me to enter the Ice-Snow world. If I want to participate in the exploration of the place where the kings died, I'm afraid I can't do it without a decent identity. Bingxue Chuling slightly bowed. Master will arrange it. We'll see the result soon. Han Fei nodded and said, by the way, do you know? The Heavenly Desolate City used to be the main city of a divine palace? Heavenly Desolation City? Bingxue Chuling looked at Han Fei and said, that's the main city of lawless heaven. The king of the shadowless heaven had once fallen in the king burial ground. They even disappeared from the chaotic vast sea a step earlier than Yin Yang Heaven. Where did they go? Lawless heaven? He didn't have a deep impression of this immortal palace. When old Han explained it to him, he felt that its name was quite similar to the Infinity Water. It seemed that there was something wrong with the naming of the Infinity Water. After Ice and Snow left, Han Fei closed his eyes and pondered for a while. Is the ashen sky not in the chaotic ocean? It seemed that there was no way to rebuild the Heavenly Desolation City. However, there was no rush. After all, he hadn't even found Xia Shaochan. Now that Xiao Chen had left the savage deep abyss, the merfolk race was in the inner sea. I wonder, will I meet Xia Xiaochan in the place where King Wang died? Thinking of this, Han Fei was thrilled. It's been decades. I wonder how much Xia Xiaochan has grown. The outer sea was far better than the yin-yang heaven in terms of spiritual energy, and resources. Xia Xiaochan's spiritual heritage was growing, and she had awakened a weird heavenly silkworm. It might be even more complicated. At this moment, her strength must have reached the venerable realm, right? 3 days later, the snow girls set out, driven by an ice phoenix, across the sky, shocking the entire ice and snow heaven. What was the purpose of such a grand trip? When Wang Jia returned, a man with an ice mask on his face appeared in front of the world. At this moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky, waving his hand, and the ice lotus hovered under his feet. With a wave of his hand, 100,000 knife shadows condensed into an ice phoenix and followed him. Bingxue Chuling stepped to Han Fei's side, holding the ice jade edict in her hand and read, "Today, there are 2 things I want to announce to the world. First, the Holy Child has arrived, and his name is Snow Battle. From today on, he will enter the Snow God's palace and be second only to one." At this moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky with an ice mask on his face. His strength had reached the peak level of the venerable realm. There were people who tried to investigate, but they couldn't find anything. Han Fei's leisurely voice echoed in the sky. Second, because the Golden Crow Heaven's king candidate, Jin Quan, died. The holy girl is grieving, and only worshipping the Tao can heal the wound in her heart. She will not marry for 1,000 years. Some people from the Golden Crow Heaven were still in the ice and snow heaven. Seeing this scene, their faces darkened. Good. What a good ice and snow heaven. Master Jin Quan has just died, and in order to not fulfill the engagement, he found a holy child? Someone secretly cursed. And the king personally accepted him into the snow god's palace? This is obviously a deliberate match between the holy child and the holy girl, to get rid of the other heavenly talents of the Golden Crow Heaven. This was a good excuse. After Jin Quan died, the snow girls would accept another person into the snow god's palace to match the holy girl. Although this was a slap in the face of the Golden Crow Heaven, the people of the ice and snow heaven were happy. Why would their holy girl, a woman who was said to have the potential to become a king, marry someone from the Golden Crow Heaven? Although most people didn't understand why Han Fei entered the snow god's palace, the people of the Golden Crow Heaven naturally had a lot of ideas. Although Jin Quan was dead, there were still other heavenly talents in the Golden Crow Heaven. To put it bluntly, the snow girls didn't want to accept this marriage, so they found this snow battle to ruin it. In any case, the name of this snow battle resounded throughout the Snow City. While people were talking about Han Fei in the outside world, Han Fei was deducing cultivation techniques at the moment. Bingxue Chuling found 6 body-refining cultivation techniques for him, and Han Fei was deducing them one by one. After this round of deduction, Han Fei had a lot of mixed feelings. In the past, Han Fei always felt that the deduction of the demon purification pot was very expensive. But now, he discovered that it only cost 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones and 66 wisps of chaotic energy to deduce the 6 great techniques to the peak level of the venerable realm. He had 2 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. How could he be short of that? It was just a drizzle. At this moment, Han Fei finally had a total of 10 body-refining techniques. They were Ancient Desolate War Body, Thunder Manifestation Hammer, Thunder Body, Body of Heavenly Fire, Ice Demon Body, Frenzy Mystic Art, Snow Demon Body, White Wave Battle Body, Water Demon Taoist Body, and Moon Seeking Golden Body. These 10 great techniques were Han Fei's last resort now. At this moment, Han Fei was excited and gritted his teeth. Fuse. In the past, Han Fei could fuse the 3 great techniques into the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance. Even in the outer domain, it was an extraordinary movement technique. This time, they were all venerable level divine quality techniques. He didn't believe he couldn't even fuse a powerful body refining technique. Fuse. Han Fei took a look and was surprised to find that this fusion required 10 billion pieces of spiritual energy, 100 wisps of chaotic energy, and a drop of essence blood. At this point, he naturally had to pay this price. 10 billion pieces of spiritual energy was not much. In the past, deducing a great technique easily cost 500 million or a billion. In Han Fei's opinion, 10 billion was still a small amount. Converted into ultra-quality spiritual stones, it was just over 10,000, not much at all. And although the 100 wisps of chaotic energy made Han Fei's heart ache, he didn't care so much at this moment. However, to Han Fei's surprise, he didn't know why deducing a technique still required a drop of his essence blood. But now that things had come to this point, Han Fei didn't care so much. Of course, he directly deduced it. Deduce, crack, crack. Cracked. The art of fusion also required spiritual energy. At that time, when a large number of ultra-quality spiritual stones collapsed, Han Fei felt that his chaotic energy was also disappearing. And a drop of essence blood flew out from between his eyebrows and flew to the demon purification pot. Han Fei didn't know that at that moment, raging waves were rolling in the outer sea. In the outer sea near the ice and snow, in the endless sea, strange phenomena overlapped, and a huge storm was condensing. In Forge the Universe, after a full half an hour, a great technique appeared in Han Fei's mind. Pure mystic body, ultra-quality in the sea expansion realm. Description: the body and mind are clear and pure, and the body is pure and clean. It nourishes and eliminates impurities with spiritual energy, demonic energy, chaotic energy, black and yellow energy, and other pure energy of heaven and earth. It has reached the pure divine body. This technique ranks 998th in the sea expansion realm among the 10,000 races in the sea expansion realm. Disadvantage: it consumes a lot of the purest energy of heaven and earth. Deduction consumption: 1,000 wisps of chaotic energy. Note: this technique can be practiced at any level. Han Fei? Han Fei's expression was weird. I have 10 divine quality body refining techniques, and you only give me one? The sea expansion realm is only ranked 998? Then if it is placed in the heaven expansion realm and then the longevity realm, how many ranks will it be? Of course, it couldn't be said that this technique was not strong. It was in the top 1,000 of the 10,000 races in the sea. That was the top 1,000 of the 30 million races. From this perspective, was it weak? Obviously, it was quite strong. Besides, this pure mystic body could be further deduced, but it required 1,000 wisps of chaotic energy. This made Han Fei's heart ache. Now, he still had a total of 1,273 wisps of chaotic energy left. He didn't even want to use the time chain, let alone use it to deduce this pure mystic body. Han Fei sighed leisurely. Fine, I'll just practice it first. It's better than the grand mystic body. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1727. The appearance of the pure mystic body indicated that Han Fei could now refine his body again. Han Fei didn't have much now, but he had a lot of ultra-quality spiritual stones. With such a huge amount of ultra-quality spiritual stones, it was only a matter of time before he reached the limit of the Demi-King level. As soon as Han Fei entered the Snow God's temple, no one could find him at all, not even Ice Snow Chu Ling. In Forge the Universe, exactly 2 months had passed, and Han Fei's nose was almost bleeding from his cultivation. Han Fei thought that the spiritual energy contained in the ultra-quality spiritual stones was pure enough. However, after he practiced the pure mystic body, he found that the proportion of the pure energy needed by the pure mystic body in an ultra-quality spiritual stone was only about 1%. Han Fei was exasperated. With the same 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, he should have been able to absorb 10 billion points of spiritual energy, but now he couldn't. However, in fact, he could only absorb 100 million pieces of pure and flawless spiritual energy. As for the remaining 9 billion, Han Fei had no choice but to use it to expand Forge the Universe. This expansion took a full 2 months, and the space in Forge the Universe was expanded to a radius of 270 kilometers. And as Han Fei continued to cultivate, this expansion would continue. Fortunately, what moved Han Fei was that the ice snow lotus was indeed a mid-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure. In just 2 months, coupled with the cleansing of the purest spiritual energy, Han Fei achieved twice the result with half the effort in his cultivation. On this day, Han Fei was continuing to cultivate. Suddenly, he felt that his body was extremely thirsty for energy. In Han Fei's eyes, he subconsciously saw a mass of chaos. In addition, Han Fei felt that his 5 senses and 6 senses, his lifespan, and his life potential. Suddenly, there were earth-shaking changes. Whew! This feeling lasted for a full 2 minutes. Han Fei couldn't help looking at his information. Owner Han Fate level greater than 89, peak level venerable. C 10,000 family treat 346056 fort chaotic gas 1. 273, spiritual powers, 209681, perception range greater than 120,000 kilometers, strength greater than 23,906 waves, first spiritual heritage, unknown, second spiritual heritage, unknown, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 78, second spiritual beast, king sparrow, level 75, main art, void arrival, level 7 of void fishing, king level, divine quality. The first thing Han Fei noticed was that his realm had dropped. Yes, he had forcefully dropped from the half-monarch realm to the peak martial highness realm. What Han Fei had been worried about finally happened. The bloodline devouring art was extremely powerful, but he still fell from a half-martial king to a peak venerable. In any case, Han Fei had a grudge against him. Once his realm dropped, it meant that he had to break through again. Back then, in order to break through to the half-monarch realm, he risked his life to cultivate the undying tyrant body. But now, after devouring 3 bloodlines in a row, his cultivation level had actually dropped. The only thing that made Han Fei feel lucky was that his comprehensive strength hadn't weakened. First of all, the 10,000 vast ocean tribe list had increased by more than 600,000 places. In front of such a huge number, 600,000 might not be a lot, but this was one race after another. In such a short time, he had actually increased the level of his bloodline by more than 1.6 million places. How incredible was that? Besides, Han Fei knew very well that as long as he could keep devouring stronger bloodlines, this inhuman bloodline would continue to grow. After increasing by more than 1.6 million places, Han Fei's realm finally dropped. In fact, Han Fei was already strong enough. This meant that Han Fei's potential was higher than before, from the peak level venerable to the half-monarch realm. Then he looked at other information. The improvement of spiritual power should have been brought by killing 3 half-monarchs, peak level venerables, and advanced venerables in a row. After all, the improvement of bloodline could only greatly improve one's potential, and it couldn't directly affect one's soul power and strength. However, the improvement of bloodline power seemed to be able to affect Han Fei's perception range. Although his realm had dropped, Han Fei's perception range had increased by as much as 20,000 kilometers. At this point, Han Fei's perception range might have reached the level of the Pioneer Sea state. And in terms of strength, Han Fei had increased by about 2,200 waves. Among them, only a small part should be brought about by the improvement of bloodline, and most of it was because of his cultivation of the pure mystic body. Cultivating the pure mystic body, as the name suggested, was to build a flawless body. Even if his golden body, from the perspective of the pure mystic body, couldn't be completely golden inside and outside of his bones, it wouldn't be a complete golden body. And Han Fei's bone marrow was about to become golden marrow. This was a big drawback in the eyes of the pure mystic body. In the past 2 months, Han Fei had digested most of the power released by the old turtle just by guiding spiritual energy to cleanse his body. However, he hadn't even completed the first step of cleansing his body yet. Oh! At this moment, Han Fei hesitated. Should I continue to devour bloodlines? If I continue to devour, I can only devour king bloodlines. If I devour again, I might be able to devour the advanced venerable realm. In fact, the improvement of bloodline level could be done at any realm. Even if he transcended the tribulation and became a king, he could continue to improve it. And the gap in combat power between a king and a non-king was too big. Although he could devour all the way in the venerable realm, when facing a king, he could barely fight a king for a few seconds. After all, he was not a real opponent of a king. Because of this problem, Han Fei was a little hesitant. In the end, Han Fei decided to devour again. After all, he still had to stay in the Snow God's temple for half a year. If he cultivated and forged the universe for the whole time, it would be 8 years. During these 8 years, he could devour bloodlines while cultivating. In just 2 months, his strength had increased by more than 2,000 waves. Then, after 8 years, Han Fei couldn't judge how strong he could become with the pure mystic body. Han Fei glanced at it, and information appeared. Thousands of races in the sea, 296202223 owner, 5065890 nearby bloodlines, ancient essence shellfish, king crab, ancient azure dragon, golden crow divine blood, time dragon carp, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish. Recommended bloodlines, ancient essence shellfish, king crab. As soon as he saw this recommended bloodline, Han Fei knew that these were the only 2 bloodlines he could devour now. If he guessed right, these 2 should be at the same level, both at the king realm. However, the king crab's talent was obviously stronger than that of the white armor emperor. Therefore, Han Fei directly chose the bloodline of the king crab to devour. After a moment, when a phantom of a little crab appeared in Han Fei's dantian, the number 4,521 days appeared in the information. Han Fei had a strange look on his face. Sure enough, his prediction was right. Every time he swallowed, the time he needed would be longer and longer. He had originally thought that 8 years should be enough for him to complete this bloodline devouring, right? But now it seemed that 8 years was not enough. It would take more than 12 years to devour and absorb the bloodline of the king crab. Han Fei smiled bitterly. After this deduction, even if he was given the opportunity to devour more advanced bloodlines, he would choose to give them up. Compared with the current bloodline improvement, he was more eager to become a king. The improvement of bloodline was only an improvement of life level and potential. No matter how strong the potential was, it was still potential and couldn't be directly transformed into combat power. But becoming a king was different. How many times stronger would his strength be? At that time, it could be said that he would be able to kill gods and Buddhas that stood in his way. But now that Han Fei had devoured, he could only work hard to cultivate and become a half-king as soon as possible. In this way, he wouldn't drop a realm again after the next bloodline devouring. At this point, Han Fei thought that his life of hard cultivation had begun. However, just as Han Fei began to absorb spiritual energy and continue to wash his body, only 3 days passed in Forge the Universe, and the old turtle spoke. The old turtle said, "Why don't you stop cultivating for a while? There seems to be a lot of people making trouble outside your house." Han Fei recovered from his cultivation, only to feel that this pure mystic body was too fucking awesome. With the help of the Ice Lotus, in just 3 days with his current life level, he had actually improved the power of 100 waves. If this continued, it would only be a matter of time before he returned to the half-king realm. Han Fei said impatiently, "Someone is making trouble outside my house? Are you kidding? I'm in the Snow God's temple." The old turtle said, "It's the Snow God's temple. Although you are not affected, these people are clamoring outside every day, which will inevitably make people doubt your identity as the holy child of the Snow God's temple." Han Fei frowned. "Then let's wait and see." Swish! Han Fei appeared in this desolate palace. The Snow God's temple, as the name suggested, was snowing all year round. Everyone was wearing snow-white cloaks, which looked like a mink. Han Fei lived in a courtyard that only those close to the snow girls could stay in, and there was a powerful restriction. The courtyard was like a normal courtyard. Except for the snow-white everywhere, the biggest difference from the style of the central holy city of Yin-Yang Heaven was that there were many snow pattern decorations here. And there was a lot of voices in Han Fei's ears. Someone shouted, "Holy child Xuezhan, come out. Xuezhan, holy girl Chu Ling, let's fight for it. If you don't come out, I will block the door every day." Shuizhan, I admit that you are the holy child. However, you have to convince us of your strength. Come out and fight. Come out and fight. Bingxue Chuling came. Countless people outside bowed to her. Nice to meet you, holy girl Chuling. Bingxue Chuling was slightly angry. I told you that Shuizhan has just returned and is in seclusion. What do you mean by knocking on the door every day? Someone said, nothing. None of us knows this Shuizhan. We believe in the appointment of the snow girls, but we have to be convinced. Someone said, I am also a peak-level venerable. I want to ask Lord Shuizhan to come out and fight. Han Fei shook his head slightly. These people? It seems that my identity is too cheap. I have to control the situation. Han Fei reached out to grab an ice mask and covered his face. Outside, dozens of experts at least in the advanced venerable realm were challenging him. Everyone was paying attention to this place. Someone sighed. It's been a few days. Will our holy child continue to avoid battle? Someone shook his head. That's not right. How can we be convinced if he keeps avoiding the fight? All of a sudden, a silhouette quietly appeared and stood on the high wall. You are really annoying. Since you want to be defeated, then come at me together. Third update. Please vote for me. End of this chapter. Chapter 1728. When Han Fei appeared, the audience fell silent. Han Fei was mysterious in everyone's eyes, not to mention he was wearing a mask. Bingxue Chuling felt her head swelling. She thought to herself, you are the 9th immortal master. Was he really going to come out and fight? In an instant, the scene exploded. There were dozens of peak stage venerables here. How could they tolerate Han Fei's nonsense? Someone said with an ugly expression, the holy child, who is on the same level as the Virgin Spirit Saintess, wears a mask all the time. What, are you afraid to show it to others? I heard that Lord Holy Child's strength is unparalleled, but for you to ask us to fight him together, aren't you looking down on us too much? Someone chimed in, that's right. Even though we're not as strong as Chuling Saintess, we're still well known in the Snow God Palace. How can we be looked down upon by the Holy Child? Someone shouted in a low voice, I'm Fan Biao, a peak venerable. Please give me some pointers, Lord Holy Child. Bingxue Chuling sighed in her heart. She hoped that nothing bad would happen. After all, the dignity of a king was not to be violated. With his hands behind his back, Han Fei chuckled indifferently. In that case, bring it on. Today, let's finish this in one go so that you don't have to bother me again. In the distance, a half-king snorted. Arrogant to the extreme. How can such a person become a holy child? A passerby said indifferently, this shouldn't be the only holy child that has been handpicked by the Snow Lady. Let's continue watching. At the peak level of the venerable realm, few people in the entire Snow God's temple could fight him head-on. Apart from the half-kings, there were only about 30 peak stage venerables, and almost all of them were here today. In front of Han Fei, the void was torn apart out of thin air, and no one saw Han Fei move at all. Everyone was slightly surprised that he tore the void so easily. Before he went in, Han Fei said indifferently, whoever wants to come, come. Finish early, I'm very busy. Everyone was annoyed by Han Fei's contemptuous and arrogant attitude. They were all at the peak of the venerable realm. Those who didn't know better would think that he was a king. Go. I want to meet him. Humph. I want to see just how powerful he is. Let's go together. I want to see what kind of person she is. Swoosh, 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 one after another, peak supremacies broke through the void and left. When these peak venerables moved, many high-level venerables and even mid-level venerables of the Snow God Palace came to watch the battle. There was no need to mention the half-king realm. In fact, even the snow maidens in the Immortal Palace were looking up at the sky. Although these people were definitely no match for Han Fei had to pretend to be a peak stage venerable, so he obviously couldn't use too much power beyond that. In that case, this battle would also be worth watching. In the void, Fan Biao held a Vajra silver rod in his hand. The rod trembled slightly, and there were overlapping shadows. It looked quite powerful. Han Fei glanced at everyone. "I'll give you another chance. If we attack together, we might have a chance." Don't look down on me, phantom 10,000-pound staff." Bang, Fan Biao attacked. The void behind him collapsed, and the shadow of the staff swept over. In the blink of an eye, the rod phantom covered the sky for 1,000 feet, and layers upon layers of dozens of rod phantoms appeared. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. It was just a bombardment effect produced by high-frequency vibration. Compared to his Monkey King 3,000 strikes, it wasn't any better. In the face of such a violent blow, Han Fei gently stretched out a hand in the shocking light. Dong, the Venerables. At that moment, although the void behind Han Fei collapsed, Han Fei stood proudly in the void, motionless, and his eyes were still indifferent and emotionless. Han Fei clenched his fist, and the terrifying rod phantom was crushed by Han Fei with one hand. Hiss, someone secretly exclaimed, "This person's physique is so strong. He withstood Fan Biao's 10,000-pound staff with only one hand?" Someone swallowed. It turns out that this person is a strong body-tempering cultivator. It's indeed rare for a body-tempering cultivator to reach such a level. A half-king said lightly, "This person's physique is even stronger than that of ordinary half-king realm powerhouses." Someone stubbornly said, "Although his physique is strong, maybe it's just his physique. It depends on his combat ability." In the field, Han Fei's hand that crushed the rod phantom casually waved in the void. Swish! A void knife light, dazzling invincible realm, instantly crossed the sky and slashed at Fan Biao. Fan Biao retreated quickly and counterattacked with the rod phantom. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of collisions rang out hundreds of times in a row. Fan Biao's hands were dripping with blood, and he barely managed to block Han Fei's casual knife strike. Fan Biao was horrified. Just one knife strike made him feel like he was stuck in mud. Except for fighting back, he couldn't do anything else at all. Swish! However, just when Fan Biao thought he had blocked Han Fei's blow, the void trembled, and Han Fei appeared directly behind him. Not good, puff. Many people looked horrified. They saw Han Fei grab the void crack with his hand, almost freezing time, and cut Fan Biao's body in an instant. With one knife strike, Fan Biao was directly cut in half. Han Fei still put his hands behind his back as if he had done a trivial thing and said disdainfully, "If I can cut your body, I won't give you a chance to be reborn with a single drop of blood. I'm going to say the same thing. You'd better come at me together. It'll be more interesting with more people." Fan Biao was horrified. Others might not have felt it as deeply as he did. At the beginning, he didn't use his Tao because that was his trump card. However, when he took Han Fei's knife strike, he knew that he would never have a chance to use his Tao again. If he didn't resist, he would be killed in an instant. Bing Xue Chiliang couldn't help but be amazed when she saw this scene. Although she could also defeat Fan Biao when they were in the same realm, it was definitely not so easy. He almost killed Fan Biao in one move. There was no comparison between the two at all. The other peak-level venerables all looked awful at this moment. Fan Biao might not be the strongest among them, but he was by no means the weakest. If Han Fei could defeat Fan Biao so easily, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to defeat them. Therefore, someone immediately responded, "Since Lord Saint Child thinks that he can defeat all of us, then we'll admire Lord Saint Child's strength." As soon as he said that, this person looked at the crowd and shouted, "Everyone has seen Lord Saint Child's strength. It's indeed unfathomable. I, Yangjin, am convinced, but it's really a blessing in life to be able to fight with a strong master like Lord Saint Child." Han Fei was even more disdainful. "If you want to have a group fight, let's have a group fight. Do you have to find a high-sounding reason for yourself?" This was probably the common problem of most people. They just couldn't recognize the reality. To put it bluntly, they were just stubborn. When these 30 or so peak-level venerables were ready, many of them had already fused with their spiritual beasts, activated their Tao, and even raised dozens of domains. Many people were thinking, "Let's see. How can this Saint Child break my domain?" The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly, and the infinity water flew out and the blade purgatory was formed. Han Fei grinned. I'm coming, swish. Han Fei instantly broke through the void. The first one to bear the brunt was a frozen domain surrounded by icicles. These icicles could be used for both attack and defense. Bam! The icicles shattered, and this person was blasted 100 kilometers away by a punch. On the other side, a person was extremely fast, trying to fight Han Fei with his speed. However, when he approached Han Fei, he suddenly felt a heavy gravity on his body, and his speed suddenly slowed down. Han Fei stretched out his hand and gently scratched his body, breaking this person into 2 pieces. In the end, the person shouted, "The Great Tao of Gravity?" On the other side, Han Fei cultivated the Great Tao of Space, so he used the world's end technique. Swish, swish, swished. Han Fei took the initiative to chase. The 2 of them took only 3 steps, and Han Fei caught up with the person and pierced him with a finger. This person was shocked. Lord Saint Child is amazing. He can actually cultivate the Great Tao of Space. After a while, when Han Fei fought several domains head-on, someone smiled bitterly. The Great Tao of Strength? Lord Saint Child has really dabbled in a lot of things. More than 30 peak stage venerables seem to be a lot, and their attacks almost covered every place. However, Han Fei's figure was too fast, and he could even move the stars. Even if Han Fei couldn't avoid them, his physique was still strong enough to make these people feel powerless. Everyone was speechless. How many Great Tao does Han Fei know? Don't you know that the road to becoming a king can only be followed to the end? Someone was punched. After being reborn with a drop of blood, he was horrified. What a terrifying power! A peak stage venerable has such strength? Why didn't I discover it in the early years? Someone was shocked. Han Fei's speed, strength, and combat skills were all extraordinary, and he could walk on all kinds of Great Tao and reach such a level. Is this guy still human? Even Bingxue Chuling was speechless. Is this the master of the divine palace in the Yin-Yang heaven? He's so proficient in all kinds of Great Tao, but he looks so natural? Could it be that all immortal masters had such heaven-defying abilities? In just half an hour, more than 30 peak stage venerables were all defeated. The onlookers were all indifferent. Someone sighed. There's no way to fight this battle. Someone tried to trick the half-king into challenging him, but the half-king glared at him. If I win, I'll have no honor. If I lose, I'll lose face. Don't ask me for this. Out of the void, Han Fei said indifferently, None of them can fight. Does anyone else want to challenge me? If not, I'm going back to cultivate. Everyone was stunned. Suddenly, someone said, Lord Saint Child, you are so strong. Why don't you compete for the violent hurricane this time? This time, the violent hurricane formed outside my ice-snow sky. If the sea-shaking wind bead falls into the hands of others, wouldn't the snow god's palace seem weak? The sea-shaking wind bead? Chapter 1729. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Bingxue Chuling. Han Fei knew that there were violent hurricanes in the outer sea. However, Han Fei hadn't learned this information from other people's memories before. Han Fei thought, isn't it common for there to be hurricanes on the sea? Is there anything special about it? However, it seems that there are still some secrets hidden in it. Bingxue Chuling knew that Han Fei didn't know much about the chaotic ocean, so she said telepathically, in the chaotic ocean, violent hurricanes are very terrifying. Because the wind is too strong, the wind in the central wind zone will gather and condense into a treasure called the sea-shaking wind pearl. This pearl is very rare. After swallowing it, you can comprehend the power of wind. However, this pearl is extremely rare and only appears in violent hurricanes. So, it has become a treasure that people compete for in the outer sea. Han Fei thought, it's not bad that it can increase my speed. Han Fei couldn't help asking, is this pearl valuable? Bingxue Chuling was stunned for a moment. Is the Yin-Yang heaven not rich? Does Han Fei value ultra-quality spiritual stones so much? Bingxue Chuling responded, yes. It's valuable, but it depends on how you measure it. Some people think it may be worth a dozen ultra-quality divine weapons. However, in my opinion, this pearl is a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Wow! Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. He wanted this pearl. Han Fei looked at the person who spoke and said leisurely, "What you said is not wrong. In that case, I'll go there. It's not because of the sea-shaking wind pearl, but because it's on the doorstep of the snow god's temple. How can others take it away?" Bing Xue Chuling was speechless. "Just now you asked about the price? But now, you're not here for the sea-shaking wind pearl?" The peak-level venerables were all stunned. Holy Child is really going there. Generally speaking, the central wind zone of violent hurricanes is something that Half-King Realm experts fight for, isn't it? However, some people also wanted to take this opportunity to see how strong Han Fei was. So, someone suggested, "Lord Holy Child, the violent hurricanes have already been forming for 5 days. In another 2 days, the wind will be the strongest. However, it may slightly deviate from the route of the snow god's temple. If you really take back the sea-shaking wind pearl, we'll respect you." "Oomph." Han Fei snorted. "Do I need you to obey me?" Then he glanced at ice and snow. "I'm going out. But I don't like leading teams, so it doesn't matter if these people go or not. It's meaningless." "Hey, wait a minute, Buzz." However, before Bing Xue and Chu Ling finished, Han Fei had already left. This scene caused the surrounding venerables to explode. "What do you mean by it's meaningless for us to go or not? Why do I not like the words of this holy child so much?" Immediately, someone snorted coldly. The humans of the seabed, the 100 Demon Clan, and Windslasher Sky, all the major forces will definitely send out their experts to fight for the sea-quaking Gale Pearl. I want to see how he'll be able to snatch it by himself. Someone sneered. "Since you don't want to associate with us, why should we help you?" Someone said, "We aren't half-monarchs yet. Let's follow the other half-monarchs to investigate. As for the Holy Child, it will depend on how capable he is." Seeing this from the Immortal Palace, the Snow Lady felt that Han Fei might be too arrogant. But then again it made sense. Being able to stand proudly in the Inyang Sky, Han Fei might be the strongest expert in the Inyang Sky and the Waterwood Sky. Unfortunately, no matter how strong Han Fei was, he was not a king. Since he was not a king, he was not worth betting on. So, she decided to wait and see. Outside the ice and snow sky. It was about 2 million kilometers away from the ice and snow sky. This place was not on the route of the major routes of the ice and snow sky at all. However, because it was very close to the snowy sky, it was not considered far. Therefore, it was not easy for Venerable Realm experts to get lost. Han Fei easily found the location of the violent hurricane. However, Han Fei didn't take action directly. This violent hurricane covered a huge range. The entire main wind circle covered a radius of 50,000 kilometers. Han Fei had never seen such a huge wind field. In the wind field, as soon as Han Fei released his perception, he was surprised to find that his perception could be blown off by the wind. The old turtle said, "The wind here contains the power of the Great Way. Obviously, it's the Great Way of Wind. In fact, this kind of storm was very common on the vast sea in the Age of Gods. This wind isn't big at all. It's just a small wind." Han Fei was speechless. "Small? Then does your Age of Gods have the sea-shaking wind bead?" The old turtle said, "The sea-shaking wind bead they are talking about should be the wind bead. It's a crystallization of the Great Way of Wind. It should be useful for venerables. However, it shouldn't be of much use to pioneer sea realm cultivators." Han Fei thought to himself, "Who cares? It's fine as long as it's useful to venerables. I haven't reached the pioneer sea realm yet. I can still use it." Just as Han Fei was on the periphery of the wind field and hadn't entered it yet, he sensed a group of sharks coming from outside the wind field. Yes, Han Fei was absolutely right. It was a group of sharks. These sharks looked a bit like blood shadow sharks, each of which was no more than 20 or 30 meters in size. Of course, at the Venerable Realm, the size of their body could be changed. Perhaps this had something to do with the habits of sharks. If they wanted to move in groups, they couldn't be too far away, so they didn't have to be very big. In fact, it was more convenient for them to swim if they were smaller. Sharks. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Venerable sharks must contain a lot of chaotic chi. If he were to accept all of them, then he might be able to recover all the energy he had used to deduce the cultivation technique. After absorbing the ordinary dragon bones, Han Fei still had a dragon head, a dragon tail, and a complete body of the azure dragon left. But these were still useful. The dragon head and the dragon tail were top-level materials for the Pioneer Sea realm, which might be useful in the future. The body of the azure dragon might be able to exchange more things with the soul of the azure dragon in the future. In addition, Han Fei had no source of chaotic chi. Little White didn't like to spit out chaotic chi, and Little White's current realm was not high enough. It could only spit out a wisp of chaotic chi a month, which was better than hunting a few venerable realm monsters. The 100 Demon Clan, as the name suggested, was a clan formed by 100 demons. Outside the wind field, the group of 12 sharks, when approaching the wind field, began to transform with a swish. In Han Fei's eyes, this group of sharks directly turned into human beings, but their heads still looked like sharks. The upper half of their bodies had strong chest muscles, and they looked like violent freaks. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Such a shark clan is really ugly. Suddenly, Han Fei seemed to understand the thoughts of the people of the Shuemu heaven when they saw the yin-yang heavenly being. There was no other thought at all. It was ugly. Why did it have to turn into a human when it was a fish? As a result, it turned into a fish that was neither a fish nor a human. Han Fei quietly approached in a black mist. Soon, when Han Fei approached them, he saw the relevant information. Named Blood Shadow Shark. Introduction: a common shark species. Because of the different evolutionary directions, they abandoned their original bodies and cultivated into half-human, half-shark people. Inheriting the characteristics of the Blood Shadow Shark, the shark people are extremely aggressive and have an extremely sensitive sense of smell for blood. When fighting or hunting, their bodies can turn into shadows, quickly approach and hunt. Level greater than 89, Half King. Quality rare, contains chaotic chi greater than 306 points. Edible effect: eating it can enhance the power of blood and energy. Collectible: teeth, fins, fish bones. When he saw this information, Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. However, Han Fei's heart immediately surged. These were simply a group of free money. Under normal circumstances, if these blood shadow sharks evolved completely and became real human beings, the demon purification pot probably wouldn't be able to read their information. Unfortunately, this was the highest humanoid form they could achieve in the venerable realm. Therefore, Han Fei saw the amount of chaotic chi they contained. The point was that these chaotic chi could be absorbed. The chaotic chi of these guys could be absorbed. In addition to the half-king he saw, there were 3 peak-level venerables, and the rest were all advanced venerables. Han Fei was thrilled at this moment. However, he still scanned the surrounding 100,000 kilometers with his perception first. After finding no one else, Han Fei decided to take action directly. Han Fei didn't panic, and the black mist quietly attached to the body of the half-king. The moment he took action, the other 3 peak-level venerables only needed to send a few more projections, and no one here could survive. At the moment when Han Fei was about to take action, the half-king shark said, "Let's wait for another 2 days. By then, a hurricane will form, and space will be lost in the wind field. We'll set up a star net. This time, we'll take the sea-shaking wind pearl and hunt the human experts. Master Blood Jade, in this case, won't we anger the human kings?" The half-king sneered. "The Gale Pirates will deal with the human kings." Someone said, "Master, I just don't believe the Gale Pirates. After all, they are also human pirates. Can we trust them?" "Hee hee," the half-king sneered. "You don't understand. The so-called race is not worth mentioning in front of interests. Human beings have their reasons for doing this." Han Fei was about to take action. However, now that he thought about it, these people still had a motive? If he killed them now, wouldn't he alert the enemy? Chapter 1730. Han Fei stayed attached to the Blood Jade for 2 days. In the past 2 days, these sharks had set up a concealment array to hide themselves. In this way, They could avoid encountering human beings and fighting them directly. Indeed, every time the violent hurricane was about to take shape, some people would come over. In the past 2 days, this group of sharks had been eating and drinking for 2 days. Occasionally, they talked nonsense with each other. The Blood Jade Half-King didn't notice anything wrong and even bragged to the other sharks, "You know what? Half a year later, the land of the dead king will open. At that time, there will definitely be rivers of blood." In order to reduce the competition, this kind of open and secret competition began as early as decades ago. Among human beings, the competition is especially fierce. Han Fei had been bragging to this shark for 2 days. This was also the first big shot that Han Fei met who would tell the whole plan to his subordinates. Han Fei was speechless. Compared with the half-king in the cage and the Inyang sky, this shark was probably the worst half-king he had ever seen. What else could you do except to show off when you told all your secrets to your subordinates? Anyway, Han Fei had now roughly known their plan. The gist of it was that the 100 Demon Tribe and the Gale Pirate crew had teamed up. When the violent hurricane took shape, they would set up an inescapable net to hunt the human heavenly talents. At this moment, they were at least sure that the heavenly talents of Zhan Feng Tian, the Green Sky, and the 100 Flowers Palace were going to take action. The purpose of the Gale Pirates was to hunt these heavenly talents. And the 100 demons wanted the sea-shaking wind pearl and half of the looted resources. Their calculations were well thought out. However, in Han Fei's eyes, these so-called plots and schemes seemed to have nothing to do with him. Han Fei didn't care about the killing of these outsiders. Han Fei only knew that this time, a lot of people from the 100 demons had come. If he could kill 50% of them, he could probably collect thousands of strands of chaotic energy, which was equivalent to thousands of dragon bones. After all, this Blood Jade alone had as many as 306 strands of chaotic energy. He was simply a tycoon. 2 days later, in Blood Jade's hand, a conch lit up. Blood Jade became spirited and shouted in a low voice, "Everyone, get ready to attack." The sharks were also spirited. Each of them took out a milky white sea cucumber-like object. Han Fei glanced at it and a certain information popped up. Name, Star Rose Silk. Introduction. It's made of shadowless ginseng, transparent sea silkworm, spirit-devouring jellyfish, star-concealing grass, supplemented by invisible bamboo. It can silently find and entangle specific enemies. Unless one had an extremely powerful divine soul, it was almost impossible to discover it. Quality. One-time high-quality divine weapon, attached spirit, shadowless ginseng effect, quietly lock on the enemy's position, recastable, refined. Note, an extreme divine soul powerhouse has a certain chance of discovering it. Han Fei glanced at it and thought, this is good stuff. It could even actively search for and lock onto enemies? This was equivalent to planting a tracker on the enemy's body. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a group of sharks released the Star Rose Silk as if they were flying kites. Poochie! The instant the Star Rose Silk was released, Shui Yu's body was instantly sliced into several pieces. The moment Star Rose Silk was released, these sharks had lost their value. Han Fei drew the net much faster than them. In the blink of an eye, the half-king was chopped into several pieces. At the same time, the body of White Mist also launched an attack. At the same time, the projections of the 8 peak-level venerables appeared. Who are you? Run! Poochie! How could they escape from Han Fei's attack? Anyone below the peak-level venerable level would be killed with one blow. After the void lines were fastened, they began to crazily devour the chaotic energy. In just an instant, except for Shui Yu who had been chopped into several pieces by Han Fei, no one else survived and all became Han Fei's food. The reason why Han Fei didn't kill Shui Yu immediately was that he wanted to see what secrets were hidden in this person's memory. After all, Half-King Realm experts had lived for a longer period of time, so they knew even more secrets. After quickly devouring the chaotic energy, souls, and vitality of the other sharks, Han Fei picked up their sun moon shells. After finding the bamboo pieces that controlled the Star Rose Silk, Han Fei controlled Shui Yu and disappeared. More than 300,000 kilometers away, Han Fei set up a large concealment array and quietly snuck into it. About 10 minutes later, Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes and frowned. The soul-searching technique also had a flaw. That was, when he saw too many memories, it was easy to confuse them with his own memories. Fortunately, Han Fei directly cut off part of the memories. Just now, when he looked at the so-called 100 Demon Tribe, he saw that each of the squads were in the shape of a turtle, a shrimp soldier, a crab, and an octopus. There were also a few squads that were made up of miscellaneous troops. These squads appeared in various places outside the violent hurricane, moving along with the direction of the violent hurricane. Although the positions of these people were not fixed, as long as they followed the star Rose Silk, they would probably be able to find them. As for the other parts of Shui Yu's memory, most of them were fake. The 100 Demons clan had a low status and had been established for less than 40,000 years. Therefore, they didn't participate in many things at the beginning at all. Perhaps the kings of the 100 Demons clan had participated in it. However, how could the kings easily reveal those messy old events to their subordinates? More likely, they would fool them with benefits. That was what kings would do. Although there was not much useful value, Han Fei saw some memories related to the Gale Pirates and the kings of the 100 Demons clan. In this memory, there were as many as 12 kings of the 100 Demons clan. Seeing this number, Han Fei didn't feel very good. These were the kings of a clan. In addition to the 100 Demons clan, there were also the Sea Humans clan, the Mermaids clan, and the Giant Beasts clan. The 100 Demon race was just one of the weaker factions in the chaotic Azure Ocean. They mainly had a large number of sea demons. They had their own water division. Their way of finding the way was no better than that of human beings. After Han Fei completely absorbed the chaotic energy of this blood jade, this time, the chaotic energy soared a lot, as many as 406 strands. A half-martial monarch realm sea demon venerable contained more chaos chi than all the remaining sea demon venerables. Han Fei's heart surged. Sure enough, hunting at sea was still profitable. In this operation, it was almost certain that he would get more than 2,000 strands of chaotic energy. At that time, if possible, he could consider upgrading the time chain. In that way, he could speed up the time of devouring the bloodline of the Ba King. Feeling Han Fei's enthusiasm and excitement, the old turtle was speechless. Will this guy really not follow in my footsteps? It seems that he has completely embarked on the devil's path. Han Fei didn't know what the old turtle was thinking. He was feeling the bamboo pieces of the star Luo silk, which would guide him to the people captured by the star Luo silk. Although he hadn't felt it yet, Han Fei didn't panic at all. The violent hurricane was only so big. In the end, it would show up. Suddenly, Han Fei's heart did a flip. Did someone come? It seemed that the death of the Demi-King and the previous 11 sharks had alarmed some strong masters. With a swish, Han Fei swam into the raging hurricane. The moment he entered the wind field, Han Fei allowed the wind to drag him across the void. At this moment, Han Fei clearly felt how strong the wind of this violent hurricane was. The kinetic energy of this moment was probably comparable to a peak blow of a demi-venerable. And this was just the periphery of the violent hurricane. Based on the strength of this wind field, the winds that could truly form a circle of gales would probably be blown out for millions of kilometers. Following the gale, Han Fei flew away with a void teleportation and disappeared without a trace. Even if a king came, it was impossible to find Han Fei at this moment. And just 5 seconds after Han Fei teleported away, in the void, a huge ship that looked like a phantom broke out of the wind field and broke through the wind. At the bow of the ship was a skinny bald man. His head was shiny and his eyes were filled with ferocity. This man was holding a section of a body in his hand and said indifferently, "In a moment, 12 venerables were killed." Is it a king? That's impossible. How can I not know the king's action? The bald man said, "Let's go. Enter the wind. Since they are enemies, we will meet sooner or later." Han Fei flew through the wind. He had to admit that the deeper he went, the stronger the wind was. And this wind was not an ordinary wind, but a wind that contained the power of the Great Way. It could easily corrode bones and destroy souls. Of course, for Han Fei now, this didn't seem to make any sense. Just when Han Fei sensed that someone seemed to be captured by the star luo silk on the bamboo piece, he was about to go forward. Suddenly his expression changed. He saw a phantom of wind sweeping over in the violent hurricane. It was extremely sharp and seemed to be about to sink into his body. In Han Fei's eyes, information immediately emerged. Name Wind Demon. Introduction. Wind Demon is invisible and is formed by the wind. This is a kind of temporary creature born in the storm. They rise with the wind and disappear with the wind. Wind demons are born and grow by devouring each other. The closer to the eye of the storm, the stronger the wind demon is. Their ultimate goal is to devour the wind pearl and become a conscious and immortal wind spirit. Level 80 quality rare contains chaotic energy 1 strand effect, inedible collectible, great way wind particle, remarks, wind demon is invisible and is formed by the wind. Han Fei was stunned for a moment. This is rare. A creature born in the wind? More importantly, this wind spirit actually contains chaotic energy. This is even rarer. Even Bingxue Chuling didn't tell me. If he could keep hunting wind demons, how much primal chaos chi would he be able to get for free? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.